If we do not mentor our youth, if we do not mentor the generations to come of humanity, then most certainly AI will. There's never been more of an important time than now for human expression one to another. Welcome to GatherVerse Youth Summit 2025, our 31st Global Summit. We greet each of you that have arrived to be able to join us from around the world, transmetropolitan, transcontinental. This is one of the most important summits we've ever held. And this is the longest summit we've ever held. We have the good fortune of being able to join one another, not only this week, but into next week as well. We've assembled a litany of different hearts from around the world to be able to express on not only the obstacles that our youth will be confronted with, similar to when all of us arrived, if you will, into this world, but the opportunities. How to go about it graciously. For all the youth that are with us today, we welcome you. Welcome to GatherVerse, a platform that meets at the intersection of emerging technologies and humanity. With humanity-first standards of accessibility and education and equality, and community development, safety and privacy, wellness, ethics, trust, care, compassion. We've had so many different voices that have arrived to our shores in human centricity and community to be able to explore and to help us to understand more of what it is that we've innovated with incredible technology that has landed as of late. But with these great innovations comes the necessity for mindfulness of great responsibility. I once posed a question: what happens when the technology becomes more advanced than the technologists? Years ago. And now this certainly has come to pass. Together, and only together, can we keep up with the cadence and the tempo and the accelerated passion of all those that are innovating in scientific laboratories, in their living rooms, in their offices, in their cubicles, at a hyper scale, to make sense of what it is that we've innovated and for whom we've innovated these incredible applied sciences for. We want our youth and multi-generational attendees today to know that they are not alone, that no one can do this alone, and that we've arrived in companionship and partnership humanely, hopefully with the great intent that whatever we innovate together, we do it with the express and permissive attitude of human betterment. We'd like to thank everybody that's come to join us at GatherVerse.live. Once again, it's so happy to see all of you and at our various social media streams on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and more. For those that are multi-streaming and multi-broadcasting, we welcome you. We greet you. If this is your first GatherVerse event, we welcome you. Come as you are. If you've been here before, thanks for joining again. We always appreciate your community support. We're so thankful for our partnering sponsors who've arrived with us as well. We'll hear a brief moment from them, and then we'll be heading into an incredible roundtable discussion on Voices for the Next Generation, a testament of enduring hope. We've assembled those who do the work, who've been in the trenches, if you will, that have something to say and something to share with each of us. We welcome them. And lastly, we ask that you share this with a friend, with a neighbor, with a family member, to let somebody to understand the words that are being said today and that are being expressed, that they don't go off into the stillness of a nothingness of a night, that they deliver and they hit home, hopefully, right within our hearts and minds. With GatherVerse, we approach this humbly with a servant's heart, and we're so thankful to be able to assemble with each of you once again. And for the tenure of what is to arrive, may our gather be well.
Hi, my name is Nina Herscher, and I'm delighted to invite you to the Digital Wellness Day Summit on May 2nd, 2025. Annual Digital Wellness Day has reached over 17 million people in 64 countries to date, and last year the US Surgeon General even chimed into the conversation on Twitter. Each year, this global movement grows and grows, and we're delighted to have partnered with GatherVerse as our broadcast sponsor this year to help reach new and different people. Digital Wellness Day is about being healthy tech, not anti-tech. It's about using technology to fuel us instead of fatigue us, and make sure that we're leveraging it for its highest and most connective good. This summit will feature a panel on workplace wellness, on youth mental health, and on AI and productivity as it relates to digital flourishing. We really hope that you can tune in and join us or post on Digital Wellness Day about what tech-life balance means to you. You can register for the summit at digitalwellnessday.com under the Participate tab. We hope to see you there.
Greetings and welcome back to everyone and to our roundtable panelists. Roundtable, we greet you and we welcome you for this important and very important first roundtable for GatherVerse Youth Summit 2025. We ask that you would mute your mics as we briefly go round robin to be able to introduce yourselves. What I'd like for you to do is to briefly let us know, 30 seconds or less, who you are and why you've decided to be able to join us today for this incredibly important roundtable discussion. We have much to cover, so we'll move as quickly as we possibly can. Asia, please, will you kick off?
Hi there, it's Asia Bribieska Hedin. I'm so glad to be back with you. Yes, it's spelled Asia, pronounced Asia. But I'm here because it's really important to me that we understand, young, old, any age, that we want to innovate, but without outsourcing what makes us human. And so that's kind of the conversation, go on with the innovation, but let's keep clear where we add value and how we leverage the technology we innovate.
Asia, please forgive the oversight of your name. You've been with us before, and it's just something that just wasn't remembered, but we certainly do value your presence. Thank you for joining us. Alita, please.
Good morning. I just want to say thank you to GatherVerse and all of the team for creating such an amazing worldwide global community. I think it's vitally important. I am grateful that we all get to come forth and speak our voice, especially on the matter of our youth. For me, I'm just super passionate about this topic, period, because I've dealt with a lot of young leaders who are moving into the world. I've dealt with young aerospace engineers who have encountered fear, Ivy League college grads who are encountering fear, psychologists, young psychology grads who are going into the performance side of things, medical interns. It's everywhere, right? And so all of the future leaders really need to have this ray of hope and a level of understanding that's going to take them into the future.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Alita. We welcome you once again. And Diane, please. Your mic, please.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Diane Chabasi. I'm honored to be part of here as a mother, a first-generation immigrant, and a founder of two mission-driven ventures, Grace May and Loving Legacy, Fin and Die Foundation. I think this topic about hope, enduring hope, is so dear to my heart, because in everything I do, for me, hope is has always been an anchor, not just a feeling, but a strategy, a steady whisper that's saying, keep going, even when the path ahead feels uncertain. And I believe our young people, faced with enormous complexity these days, and also possibility, are being called not just to adapt, but to lead. So today I wanted to speak not just as a professional, but as someone who has walked through the unknown, held tight to purpose, and come out on the other side, gratefully grounded and committed to helping the next generation do the same. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed, Diane. We welcome you and thank you for sharing this. Those words of expression. We're already setting it off for this roundtable. And Christy, we welcome you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. Hope, it's actually a leadership multiplier. Gallup data shows that people who are hopeful managers or leaders, they drive a ton better engagement, performance, and retention. It's actually a fact that hopeful leaders increase productivity by as much as 14%. And so I'm here to talk about that a little bit today. I'm Christy Straw. I'm an executive visibility strategist and leadership expert. The founder of Lighthouse Leadership Consultants. And I've spent over 20 years inside of the corporate machine, I call it, plenty of corporate conditioning. And so I help leaders navigate the transformation of what's taking place in the world today, because we are, in the middle of our biggest shift yet. While AI is scaling super fast, so is disconnection. And so I'm here because I believe that the next generation does need technical fluency, of course, but more than that, we all need a greater degree of emotional fluency. So they need leaders who know how to stay human in a system that is literally trying to automate everything. And I'm really excited to talk about it today.
We're happy to lean in and talk about it more with you, Christy. Thank you so much. And Michael, we greet you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm Michael Allison, founder and CEO of the Diversity Academy. And one of the biggest reasons why I'm here in regards to speaking to the youth, it means so much to me being an immigrant from Jamaica and someone actually growing up in Miami and seeing what it's like to see what it's for youth to grow up in some poverty situations and circumstances. And for me to be one of those youth to get out of that. And now I'm speaking and doing leadership training and seeing the impact that it has, knowing the impact we have where we could deliver hope and share that to the youth nowadays is such an important responsibility and an accountability piece for us.
Okay, hopefully we'll get Michael right back with Wi-Fi considerations. And Ellen.
Hi, my name is Ellen, and I am a generational translator. So what do I mean by that? I work with early career professionals and explain to them the thoughts and expectations of leadership inside of companies and how companies really work, sort of the unwritten rules. And then I work with companies and their leadership to try to translate for them what the expectations and skills and thoughts and values are of the newest generation entering the workplace. And just to give you an idea why we need a generational translator, I would ask you all to think right now about a song where the word little is in the title. And I bet you with that same prompt, the mental playlist that all of us have is going to be very different generation by generation. And so same ideas, but very different expectations, very different ways of approaching something, very different thoughts. And so the reason I'm very excited about being here today is because I truly believe that the generation that's coming up right now, that's soon going to be 30 to 35% of the workforce, can change the world, but not if we can't all speak to each other and communicate well. So I'm very hopeful about today's GatherVerse and excited to be here.
Thank you, Ellen. We're looking forward to exploring more of the sentiments that you just graciously expressed. Michael, did you want to finish?
No, go ahead. I just was able to share a little bit about my upbringing, but I'm looking forward to the opportunity to be here, speak with you guys, speak more about hope and how me as a leader and being in the space that I am and seeing what it's like to have an impact on kids nowadays is truly tremendous. So just looking forward to the opportunity to speak to you guys about that.
And we're looking forward to speaking with you. And as a side note, as a decorated soldier, we just want to say thank you for your service.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course. Trina, please, welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thanks again, Christopher, for creating this wonderful space. I'm Trina L. Hill, and I am the CEO and founder of TLH Consulting. I am passionate about this is because I once was them, right? 20, 25 years ago, a number of us were walking into the workforce and we were bright-eyed. We thought we knew everything. And we were grateful, and I know I was grateful to have people come alongside of me and walk me into adulthood, right? Walk me into leadership, walk me into even my faith walk, right? Helping me through that. And so one of the things that I think with this next generation of leaders is that we have to make sure that we're reaching back and helping them shepherd. They run fast, but we're the ones with the wisdom. They can run fast, but we need to tell them where to go or how to go where they're going so that they don't hurt themselves in pursuit of what they perceive to be success.
Thank you so much, Trina. We certainly do welcome you once again here at GatherVerse for this 31st Summit audience titled the GatherVerse Youth Summit with a distinct focus. It's just so interesting when Trina mentioned of our days of old, if you will. We all had our time in our youth. I suspect that there will be quite a bit of reminiscing this week and next on the lessons that we were afforded when we were younger. And somebody, audience, at some point gave us the opportunity to be able to guide us. And we were afforded just for someone to help point us in the right direction. We have a lot of questions to uncover and unpack here with a little bit of time that we have roundtable. And so we will be going question for question, and we will be going off script as I will now. And I'll begin with you, Asia. We hear this word leadership, and oftentimes it's used in the throes of business. And I'd like to think that I really understand what leadership means, but will you help me to understand from your lens perspective that you would share with all of the global GatherVerse community, when we talk about leadership for today's and next generations to come for our youth, what does that look like? And what is needed? What is the ingredients of leadership today in 2025?
Absolutely. So leadership, I have a very specific way about talking about leadership because it involves everybody and not just the people who have a team or direct reports or decision authority, right? Leadership is your ability to elicit the best from yourself and others toward a common goal, right? Whatever that goal or outcome is. But I think what makes that way of thinking about it important is that it always starts with you. You elicit the best from yourself first, and then from there, in other words, you're not walking in already, let's say, flustered, with an attitude, angry, trying to prove something. Rather, you show up and start out already in a space connected to what's most important here now. And now from there, how do I, align everybody and get us all moving in the same direction and getting folks wanting to show up at that next level? And I think what's important and necessary about that for today is that I love AI. So for one, let me start by saying that I've leveraged it, from day one. I think it's fantastic. I think it's fantastic as a thought, consciousness, and brilliance enhancer, not replacer. And what we need to do today, and hopefully always, is remember that, what makes us human, that's what we want to pull into how we show up as leaders, what we expect from others, and actually invite them to be human in the workplace, which is something that I still think is lacking and limited. And we know people are suffering, but we want them to leave their suffering at the door, as opposed to even just taking a moment to acknowledge, hey, things are rough. How can we support? And same for our kids.
Asia, thank you for sharing that. And Christy, I'm going to leap over to you, Alita, and then Michael, then so forth and so on. We have a lot to cover. We will be jumping around, but I really appreciated what Asia just talked about, with leadership starting from within first to be able to draw out internally what we have, as opposed to some book that I read on the shelf at Barnes and Noble. I think that makes a daylight difference. Christy, what do you think about that? Your mic, please.
I completely agree with you. So much of leadership today, unfortunately, is rooted in theory, right? Theory is great, but as the next generation has shown us with their feet of literally walking out the door from what I call shamagers, which are managers who lead via shame or who are just a sham of a leader and shouldn't be in that role. Unfortunately, that next generation, well, fortunately, that next generation is showing us with their feet that they absolutely aren't going to tolerate a culture that is riddled with stigma, a culture that isn't about growth and development. And then when you actually think about what the next generation wants in a modern leader versus what most people operate from, which is a command and control model, we really struggle with instilling hope in the next generation. And so that's my biggest fear, right? People are telling us every single day that data doesn't lie. Listen, I'll go drive an Uber, be damned what my daddy says about it, before, right? Everybody's laughing. Before I'm going to go work with a leader who is not a leader, who is a shamager, who doesn't understand the importance of creating a psychologically safe environment. That's where innovation is going to thrive. That's where people bring their whole selves to work. And everybody wants to talk about belonging, but we do not currently have leaders in place who, one, understand what actual belonging is, and two, are ready to put their money literally where their mouth is. We don't have a congruence of actions and words in a lot of executive spaces. And me having come from one that was very similar to that, it's the whole entire reason that I started the business. It's concerning, and leadership theory isn't what we need as much as leaders who are willing to get in the trenches, roll their sleeves up, mentor the youngsters, and also more than mentor them, sponsor them, highlight them, give them opportunities, and bring them along and provide access that our privilege allows us in some cases to others.
Sure, I find that rather fascinating, Christy and Lita. Maybe you can help me to understand some things that Christy just unpacked when it comes to rolling up the sleeves, if you will, getting into the trenches and to be able to support our youth and to sponsor them. But my question I think will help be in complement. How do I actually access the youth of today's world when I can remember in the days of our youth, and perhaps I'm alone, a siloed individual in this, but there was such a disconnect with the older generation when I was younger. How do we bridge that gap so that we can even support our youth to be able to help sponsor them? Alita?
Yeah, thank you. So I would say, we have a habit of speaking to our youth, right? Of talking to our youth versus asking our youth their opinions. If we want to assemble and create thought leaders and thinkers, then we need to value and appreciate their opinion. We need to allow their voice to be heard. We need to speak to them as if they are decision makers over their own lives, because they are, right? As well as anything else that they might lead moving forward into the future. And for me, leadership is really like, let's boil it down and keep it super simple, right? I always say we need to lead with compassion. Everybody says empathy. I say not empathy. Empathy requires being able to feel what another person can feel. Not everybody has shared experiences. Compassion, however, does allow us, right, the capacity to be able to understand another person's experience. And that's really what opens the door for open communication and better understanding everywhere. The key to this is really teaching our youth about integrity, right? And we teach our youth about integrity by being integritous, meaning our actions should match our words, right? Our actions should match our words.
Indeed, Michael, in the work of our actions matching our words, where do we go? How do we come down to the level of our youth to demonstrate to them that our actions do match our words, to communicate with them how important it is that they have a good grip on the understanding of the world that they're heading into, because from their eyes, they don't necessarily see what's on the other side of the mountain, but their world is so huge of what it is that they see, but there's so much more yet to come. How do we arrive to where they're at, Michael?
Yeah, I love that question. You know, being someone that served in the military, you kind of taught a certain type of way of being a leader. And when it comes to applying some of those things, it does not apply when it comes to meeting the youth. And for me, to answer your questions directly, is you got to meet them where they are, meet them where they're at. You got to get to their level. Leadership is more than just some of those things that you've learned in the past traditionally. And now you have to meet them where they are. So you got to do that effectively to reach them, to inspire them outside of some of the traditional models. And then when I say that, you got to think about it from a standpoint of like, we got to be relatable, not just respected, but relatable to them, understand them, share some of our stories, be open to their thoughts, be open to their language, to their opinion, where they're from, accepting some of the things that they're going to bring to the table too as well. And then for me, when I work with youth as well too, is as a leader, you got to be able to guide them without just dictating, right? So be able to just ask some questions and probing, help them discover things and find out different things and providing different principles, not just rules. Those are some of the things that I would say. And then thirdly, I would also add this too as well, is like listening to build trust. It's so hard nowadays for kids to start building trust with people they are willing to be vulnerable and transparent with. I could think about that for myself with some of the things that I've been through as a kid. And I was always searching and seeking someone that I could actually build trust with. And in positions that we are as leaders, to be mentors, to be coaches, if we could build that relationship to build trust, I think that is significantly going to be important too as well. And then for us as leaders too, we have to model what we're preaching. So if we're going to ask these kids to listen to us, to follow us, then we have to model that and embody that. And even at the point of, even if we make mistakes, admit that we make mistakes and just demonstrate some of those things consistently as well too. We cannot preach it and then not live it too as well. And I think those are some of the most key important parts when it comes to like discovering that identity for them to actually find and seek their purpose too as well.
That's rather powerful, Michael, and thank you for sharing that. And Diane, some of the sentiments that I gauge from what Michael expresses, admittance and hope and a promise. But Diane, you talk about hope as a strategy. I find that rather fascinating. And looking at that, we're coming down to the trenches of where the youth are, or wherever they abide within the forest or in the meadow, and arriving to them. But it seems that we're arriving with the deal that's to be made, to be understood, and having this relationship on how we intentionally have regard to them and how they will have regard to us. But we talk about hope as a strategy, Diane, and the vestiges of leadership. Could you share more about that with us, please? In your mic.
Of course. Yeah. So hope is really a strategy. And we inspire hope when we stop trying to protect young people from hardship and instead equip them to meet it with agency, community, and perspective. Hope is born from being seen, supported, and trusted to contribute. So when you're thinking about the education that our youth is accessing to, the modeling that we have the responsibility to perform, whether it's mentoring a young founder or facilitating a dialogue circle, we've seen firsthand that when young people are invited to create, not just to consume or comply, hope becomes tangible. So I think we need to create that container to let them build, let them lead, and let them know that their voice shapes more than just the future, it shapes the now. So that's what I consider hope is really the strategy, and it's rooted in the right mindset that we are helping our youth to build.
And when we talk about hope, Trina, and we talk about the need for hope and to instill within our youth that their aspirations can be fulfilled, and that it could be more than just a hope, but it could be actual, something actual that can be. It kind of segues with when I think about what Michael talks about with actionable intent. And Alita says, demonstrating that which what you believe in that you would say unto them and communicating unto them, which is just so important because it seems to me that our youth are more observant in this world than they ever have been before any other generation that's walked the face of this earth. Let's look at it, audience. If you look at all the devices and the applications of transparency that our generation have innovated and that we deployed into the world, for those such as myself in the 80s and the 90s, I'm dating myself, so I get it. But for those that have grew up, that were raised in these times, Trina, we didn't enjoy such devices as TikTok and Instagram and the LinkedIn's of the world and social media for that. We had sticks and stones and tree branches to be able to work with our next door neighbors, didn't we? And that was and then whatever the evening news, and we all saw the same evening news on a localized level. But in this world, our youth are seeing more than they ever have before. And there's a certain residual sentiment that's engaged within them, depending on the content that they've subjected themselves to and that they enjoy for transparency. Trina, help us to make sense of this hope for a better future when so much of what they see is a future that does not seem hopeful.
Yeah, so I still think it goes back to, I believe in relationships. So to me, I'll say two things. So number one, relationships matter, right? I know for me, I wanted to be seen, heard, and valued as a teenager. I still want those same things as an adult. We all want that, right? We want to know that we're seen, we're heard, and we're valued. And so when I think about the technology and the explosion of the technology, our youth is screaming to be seen, heard, and valued. Value means likes. Value means followers to them. I think what we have to do as leaders in different spaces, because we're leading in different spaces, right? As parents, as aunts and uncles, and also professionals in the workplace, is we have to help them understand that your value is greater than the technology that you use, and that your impact is greater. And success is not defined by followers. We grew up during a time where being a follower was a bad word. At least I was. My mother was like, I don't want you to be a follower, be a leader, be a leader, be a leader. This technology explosion has taught our children, our young adults, to be followers instead of for them to spend time with themselves and understand who they are and understand the leaders that they really need to be. And you learn that through trial and error. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to do dumb stuff. That's what you do. That's a part of the evolution of a leader, a good leader, I would say. It's understanding when you made those mistakes, understanding when you need to pivot, and also giving yourself forgiveness in the process and having time to reflect on what did I learn and what do I need to do better. And so as I think about this next generation, I have a 20-year-old. So I am a very smart person to everybody except for him. He is my Gen Z mentor. But the one thing that I try to impress upon him, as well as other young adults that I'm around, is relationships and people matter. Get off your phone, put it down, have conversations that are not transactional, and spend time getting to know people. And also being respectful, because the other part of this, right, is that we're going to try to create, our goal is to create this safe space, but that safe space must be reciprocal. So as we try to pour into them, they have to make sure that their cup is empty enough and that they're willing to allow us to pour into the cup, because it won't make sense if we're spending time to listen, as Michael talked about, right, and to show them what leadership is, if they're not willing to receive what we're trying to give them. It has to be a mutual exchange.
Got it. Thank you, Trina. And I'm going to touch back more on that in a second. There's a lot that you just unpacked there. But Ellen, I want to rendezvous over to you. You seem to have a sufficient amount of optimism in the belief that our youth, perhaps collectively as a whole in civilization, can make lasting impact and make difference in this world and how we've gone about it. And I would think that that's the residual hope of all of us, that our youth would do better with their opportunities than what we have, candidly. But how does that happen, though, Ellen, in your mind? Because there's hope, and then it seems like there's grandeur, to be candid. Help me to come with something more strategic, as Diane would talk about. Hope. What does that look like? You know, sure, I'd like to get up and I believe our children are the future, Whitney Houston. I need that song to come alive. So, Ellen, what do you have for me?
I think that the best way to make change is from within. And so I want to just follow up a little bit on what Trina just finished saying. and something that you said earlier too, Christopher, which was, we are all human and we grew up in different generations and we want great stuff, but we have our own fears and foibles and expectations and ideas about how to gain success. And I think that the best way for young people to thrive and to succeed, especially in the times that are happening today, is by working inside of the system to build trust. And so, we've heard a lot of people talk about what leaders have to do, but frankly, the leaders are the folks that are our age that grew up with, no bike helmets, no seat belts, no cell phones, no warning labels on anything. So we come from a very different way of thinking about things. And I think that young people have to understand that we are just human too. And the best way to move forward and to grow and to be mentored is to build trust with people who've kind of been there, done that. So when I was thinking about what to talk about today, I looked for people who might have expressed this better than I can. And Warren Buffett just talked to some university, and he was giving advice to the folks that were graduating. And he said, the foundation of anyone's fortune, whether that be financial success or just personal success, isn't just effort. It's figuring out your strengths and then picking the right people to work with, making them trust you, and then being willing to work at something even if you make mistakes along the way. So being resilient. So I think as Trina said, this is a two-way street. And so helping young people understand that they can make a difference too by building trust and making leadership think, I trust you, I understand you, you've got my back, we'll work on this together. Then people want to help you. And then it's just about going for it and trying and believing you can.
Thank you, Ellen. That's very fascinating. And Alita, I need your help for something. Will you walk with us for a moment, please? Because as I listen under the sound of Ellen and Asia in particular, and we'll rendezvous with you, Asia, in just a moment, and Michael as well, and Christy, and so forth. I want to stay in linear progression, if you will, on this thematic of finding it within, if you will. The leader. We talk about leadership, and as I hear Ellen talking about to have trust in one another, but how can I trust one another if I don't have that, or I can't discover that trust within? So my question is, when I am looking within, searching for that leadership, when I do want to commit to trust externally, what am I looking for when I look within, and how do I find that strength that Ellen has talked about?
Yeah, that's kind of a complex one, but I would say that I would start with a bit of two things, right? One is understanding our own physical operating system and how we're designed to function. And so really understanding that it's more so than mindset, it's more understanding that we have the ability to tell our brain what to do and it does it. That speaks to our ability to be able to remain calm and resilient in most situations. And so I like that, understanding that about how we're physically designed. You can tell your brain what to do and it does it. That is really paramount, right? Because we're caught in a systematic thought process where, and also the social media that Trina spoke to and all of the media sources, right? We need to pull ourselves out of that and understand that we have our own internal mechanism of right and wrong, right? And we can get really grounded in that. And the biggest thing that I really want to bring to the forefront is teaching people and our youth in particular how to trust their own intuition. We all have an internal guidance system. We can feel when something is right and when it's not right, right? Many people reference it as gut instinct, right? So the more that they practice learning how that functions, right? Like, oh, I'm walking down the road. Oh, gee, should I turn down that road? I don't know. My gut says no, right? Okay, then keep walking. It's that navigation system, our own internal navigation system. And the more they practice using that, the more they're educated about that, the better they're going to navigate everything it is that they have to navigate in today's world.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And we'll follow up on the heels of that, Asia, when we started with what you progenerated, if you will, talking about the leadership within without me having to pick up a novel and a book to be able to tap into better understand that, because it seems to me that there are unique cultural contributions to this world, that everyone has that IP, but the really, I just really appreciate that with what Alita just said, is it's not having to take the conventions of your leadership from social media for social media to be able to tell you how to operate in this world, but that own agency that you have within to tap into that. It seems to me that there's so much more interesting within than without when it comes to a TikTok scroll. But Asia, help us to understand, why did you say that leadership has to begin here? And when we do find that, how do we demonstrate that to reach to Ellen's aspirations of having our youth empowered or imbued with the residual hope to bring a betterment to this world and for their generations to come? I have to say this too before this is extremely important, as we kicked off in saying that if we do not show our youth how to go about this, then artificial intelligence is available. And I would submit to you that these models in this world are becoming more capable than ever before. They have the power of speech. They have computer vision. They can see. They can go conversational AI and have dialogues at length with you now with great memory capacity and larger context windows. I want to better understand, how do we convey this with the hope of mentorship and guidance, Asia?
Yeah, I love this question and this side of the conversation, because I do believe it goes back to the modeling. And I know that, Michael, you had started talking about that. And in particular, there's something you'd said earlier about when you don't know, or when you fumble, and being able to own that. And I think, especially the TikToks and the, and Facebook and every stream, it's intended to communicate our successes, or even if it's intended to communicate lessons learned, it's framed in such an inauthentic way that you never actually had to say you were wrong. I don't know if that makes sense. But I think the opportunity for us and to help our youth is to model what failure, setbacks, recovery, rethinking, and reconsideration look like. All of those things, so that when we have conversations with them, we're not just giving them an answer. We're asking them what they think, right? Because I think, Trina, you were saying this earlier, you wanted to be asked what you thought and know that it mattered and that it counted, and that continues to matter. But asking what they think, not just what they think, but why. Asking them to consider, what would somebody who disagrees with you say about this? What might they say, and why? And how could both of these things be a little true? Because I think it's that nuance that we used to define intelligence, on some level, as the ability to see two conflicting or confounding things as potentially true. And now we've gotten to a place where we've removed all of the important variables and just try to reduce an entire complex perspective to a soundbite. And then we have our kids repeating those sound bites. They don't even know why. They'll hear a term thrown out like, so-and-so is fake news. And so they'll start to say, so-and-so is fake news. Oh, okay, why? But they can't actually discern or understand the question why. And again, it's okay if that's what they believe or don't believe, but we want them to understand the power of their own discernment. We want to make our thinking and our recovery and our ability to misstep and think through, oh, shoot, that did not work at all the way I hoped. Okay, here's what worked. Here's what totally didn't work. What's one thing I can do differently next time? So that they're not as tied up as, I think, even me, I'm a Gen Xer, as we are in trying to look like we have it figured out. And like I said, even when we make mistakes, framing it in such a way that, and look how awesome I am to now be sharing this wisdom with you. When the reality is, my real fumbles, my big fumbles, I'm keeping back here. I'm hiding them away from everyone.
I'd like to step in. I don't agree. I don't agree at all, actually. I think that authentic authority is what we're encouraging in youth. And unfortunately, I call them shamagers or dinosaurs, like I said, that we have in executive leadership. They don't like that. They don't want people to have employee generated content in a lot of systems, and they'll talk to you about that. They don't want you to talk about your mistakes. I do not agree, because I too am a Gen Xer, that we buff up whatever we do and we can't call it a mistake. I truly don't think there's a lot of mistakes in life. I think that the way to move forward is we win or we learn. And I think that that is the power of helping youth understand that you can innovate, you can ask questions. We've got to ask better questions. I totally agree about critical thinking, but I think the problem lies with executive leadership in a lot of situations. Having come from the C-suite, I see a lot of heads shaking, consulting with them. They struggle with the mentality that you can try and you can try again. And I've quit a lot of things in my life, and I'm quite a winner. And so I do a lot of talking about that to my 3 children and when I'm on a stage, because it's that antiquated mentality that has kept youth small, and they don't want to play the game and they don't want to show up in the world that way. And we need leaders who don't normalize failure or you can't quit, et cetera, et cetera. I think that is a massive key to building and generating hopefulness in this next.
This is my concern, though, that we're assuming that failure is a bad word, and this is where we went wrong. This is where we went wrong, because we can't get to whatever it is that beautiful, shiny other side is without the multiple stumbles along the way. So let's talk about the frickin' stumbles. We're all having them, right?
Yes.
All the time, everywhere.
Yes.
So we need to model having those conversations. So we screwed up publicly. And now how are we recovering from this? It's awful. We got egg in our face. And yet we're still here to talk about it another day. Right. So, yeah, I think we have made mistakes a bad word. We've made failure a bad word. We've made even owning them bad, to the point that we're trying to redirect what was clearly potentially our responsibility on someone else. Right. So you have those, and I love that term shamager, by the way, but you have those shamagers that are then, I don't know if you've heard of the term failing up. But they fail, and instead of owning the failure and helping the team recover from the failure, they blame it on the team or someone else and keep on moving up because they're untouched. And that is not the way. We want people to know you're supposed to be touched. You're supposed to get through this with bumps and bruises and know nothing has gone wrong. Anyway,
I want to surf on that for a second. Because that does speak squarely to the question that we have on deck right now, of the mindset, preparing the youth for a future we can't predict. Michael is someone that is not a stranger to entering into and well trained for hostile environments and entering into it. It seems to me that the world of innovation has made the situation quite volatile when our youth are heading into. Again, they're not heading into Nintendo and Sega Genesis and Barbie. They're heading into something much more transparent, much more different. What is the mindset that's needed that we must convey to our youth based on the mistakes and the errors that we have innovated and the brilliant technology that we have innovated? It's almost like the scientist that stands by and says, my goodness, what have I done? What have I made? And we're saying, here, this is your responsibility now. What mindset do we send our youth in, according to what Christy and Asia are looking at? Sir. Your mic, sir.
Yeah, I'm here listening, and I just think it's interesting based off where we're at now with our youth. And I think for myself, the first time technology, a cell phone, actually touched my hand was at 22 years old. Now, my son is waking up on his cell phone, and my son is 17 years old, but he had a cell phone in his hand at about 4 or 5 years old. So it's been in his hand in regards to technology, the evolution of TikTok, the Instagrams, the YouTubes, all of these different things are now fighting for his attention. These highlight reels are catching his attention. And he's being so distracted by so many other things that's changing his mindset and his thinking and processing and all of these different things. We could even like chalk it up to some of the things we talk about with the things, they wanted things in a microwave, from a microwave standpoint. And when it comes to mindset, you know, I've always looked at what the military has always taught me, and is proper planning prevents poor performance. And when we think about being resilient, being adaptable, and having those types of mindset nowadays, we have to start embracing some of those things, because that's leading to the curiosities, leading to some of the uncertainties, leading to some of the things that tied to the growth. And these kids now are on the verge of like perfection, right? So when we look at what we're talking about, you can't say I messed up, or I can't say I had mistakes, because all we're seeing is the highlight reels. All we're seeing is all of the things that we're doing so well. So if I mess up, if I screw up, oh, it's a bad thing. Oh, I'm depressed. Oh, I might have anxiety. Or I want to commit suicide. All of these different things are tied to these things that are impacting their minds, impacting their thought process, and how they're going through things. So it's important for us as leaders, it's important for us now in regards to like teaching and conveying, to be much more resilient in facing some of these things and addressing some of these things head on, opposed to running away from it. Because this is what is leading to, and we can see some of these things spilling out into our faces now. As soon as something bad happens, you see it on the news, they're shooting up schools, they're doing all of these different things, because instantly they're thinking, this is the result of this. This is what I need to do, because they have not been taught, they have not been trained, they have not prepared, they have not been planned. No one is coaching them, no one is mentoring them to deal with tough times, tough situations, and tough circumstances. So it's important for us to bring some of those back in and start planning and start preparing, and just putting some of these infrastructure back into place as leaders to help them prepare to deal with adversity, to deal with challenges, to learn how to pivot, to learn how to be adjustable, learn how to be adaptable, to learn how to deal with complex situations, to learn how to rebuild, how to reprocess things inside of our mind. And some of those things where we could start putting back into the schools, putting back into parenting, putting back into programs, putting back into is all of these different things I think is key and important at this particular time.
Thank you so much, Michael. Trina, what do our youth want from us? You know, we spend time thinking about what it is that we want to instill into them, but what do they even want from us?
Yeah, again, I think it goes back to, I want to be seen, I want to be heard, I want to be valued. And that's what they want, what they say they want. But I think another thing that they want, but they don't know yet to ask for this, is tying back to what Michael said, is how do we help them be resilient? How do we help them learn to transform? Right? Or the word is pivot, right? Because again, if we go back to most of us on this call, some of us on this call were latchkey kids. We didn't have parents at home. We had to come. I know I had to go home. I had to get dinner on. And whether that was right or wrong, we were just very self-sufficient. If I messed up a meal, my mother got on to me. She showed me how to fix it. And then I had to do it again. She didn't tell me I couldn't do it again, right? In corporate America, the leaders that helped me allowed me to fail. And something else and we've touched on this, they wanted me to see them as people, not positions. And even as an executive prior to me working for myself, that was something that I was key on. They want to know that we're people. We're not a position. We're going to make mistakes. And our desire is to communicate to let them know you're going to be okay. If you make a mistake, it'll be fine. We'll fix it. You'll learn from it. You'll move on. But they need to know we got their backs. I don't think they always feel like somebody's going to have their back. We're so busy telling them how to I think it was Diane mentioned, to keep them from making the mistakes versus saying, I already know you're going to make mistakes. I'm going to cover you. I'm going to cover you now. I'm going to teach you ahead of time. So some things I'm going to teach you so that you don't make a dumb mistake. Because to me, I don't believe in paying for a lesson that's already been paid for. Why pay for a lesson I've already bought? Don't do that. That doesn't make sense. But if you make the mistake, I'm going to cover you. But again, Christopher, I still think it goes back to relationships and communication and trust. Because I won't cover you if I don't know you, if I don't trust you, right? You won't let me cover you if you don't know me, if you don't trust me. And so in this digital age with young adults definitely going back into the workplace, into the office, I think we've got to go to lunch. I think we got to sit around and have some meals. From a virtual perspective, I think leaders as well as the youth, we have to reach out to one another and have people conversation and not position conversations.
You know, I find that
Conversations with your leaders shouldn't just always be about work. It should be about them as a person.
and that I'm a person and not a responsibility, right?
Absolutely.
Does that make sense, Trina?
Yep.
I think about that and I hear it, and it's just so personable when you start thinking about the disposition in the positioning that our youth find themselves in, Diane, in this world where we're wanting them to hope, you know, for the best, and despite the incredible challenges. And I must admit, I can't imagine what it is from the eyes and the lens of a 15-year-old. I can't even empathize anymore. And I think that may be part of the problem, is that I want them to understand a thing that I'm attempting to convey to them, Diane, based on my experience at 15. But my 15-year-old experience is not their 15-year-old experience. They see more. You know, there's a time where our parents want to tell us things with good reason, or so-called good reason, to be able to keep us from knowing that, and we'll find out when we're older. But as Michael just expressed, that his son wakes up with a phone in his hand, and on that device, and on this phone, there's more things to see in this world than ever before, and it's rather transparent. And so we're asking them to hope. So when you talk about hope comes with strategy, what reason do they have to even come to the table in the first place to and to be able to, in this new deal, to make a strategy of hope, Diane?
Yeah, so I think hope will emerge or endures when it's practiced, not just preached. So, and this should be a collective effort. You know, it needs to be built into our institutions, into our curriculums, our creative practices, and in our relationships. So how can we embed hope into how we lead, how we live our own lives and structure our organizations, or even pass down on our legacies? It becomes more than a feeling. It has to become a culture in order for them to create an environment for them to actually practice this hope, this strategy of hope. So I think this is a big mission. It's a mission for all of us. It's not an overnight effort. It's not a one-person effort either. You know, I think by having this summit is a testament to that effort. The more we talk about it, the more that we make it normalized. That's how our youth will come to the table, will feel it's, you know, it's being practiced every day around them and include them. So I'm hoping that we will be that force to build an aligned, resilient foundation for them.
Thank you, Diane. But Alita, I want you to segue into this because I know you have something to express on the heels of what was just expressed.
Yeah, I do. So when it comes to hope, and just in general, I want everybody to understand programming is very real, right? So as a society and globally, on an overall whole, we are programmed to primarily think negatively versus positively. We are programmed to focus on all the dump, basically all the trash, all the negative things that are happening in the world versus the really awesome things that are happening in the world. So Trina, to your point of put this down, right? There's a couple things I will say to this. This is programming. I would tell and encourage all of the kids, pay attention to your algorithms because they are a reflection of your thought patterns and they are literally regurgitating back to you what you're focused on a regular basis. So pay attention to that and use it as a tool, not just young leaders, but adults also, right? Pay attention to what's primarily popping up for you because it's an algorithm of your focus and your attention. So that programming, we are programmed and it's a pattern. That programming, right, is a bunch of bullshit, quite frankly. And I will say that out loud because when you step out into the world, right, I have people say this to me all the time, Alita, yeah, but I'm a realist. right? And I will say, if you're a realist, my friend, then understand this. When you put down all of the programming and you step out into the world, there's as many superheroes across the world globally saving lives daily, right? There's miracles that are happening left and right all the time, but we're not broadcasting it. We're not programming it. So I will say to the youth, stay curious and stay open-minded versus assumptive. Do not assume the worst. Instead, stay curious. How many times have I wanted to finish a person's sentence because I'm assuming that I think I already know what they're saying, only to find out that that wasn't what they were going to say at all.
Sure.
Right?
Thank you, Alita. Much appreciated. Christy, and then Ellen will route over to you. Christy, I want you to route in to talk about hope. I want to leave this conversation with residual optimism, and then I have a brief 10-second for each of you to be able to rehearse, and then we'll conclude. But Christy, let's segue into hope.
Yeah, so much of hope is really well stated, Alita. A lot of people don't actually have, and they don't grow and work on that muscle of a solution-focused mindset or a mindset of abundance. Now, I first like to caution that there are people who don't grow up in a world where there is a mindset of abundance. It would be really unwise of me to stand here and say that everybody's trained in that way, everybody had that experience growing up, but leadership should, at the very least, be growth-minded and operate from a mindset of abundance and also positive intent. Right? So much of leadership needs to be anchored in positive intent in order to continue to grow hope and to show hope as a strategic opportunity moving forward for the youth. I would definitely.
Christy, let me ask you quick. How are we quantifying abundance?
Yeah, that's going to be up to each individual, but much to what Alita was saying, there is an abundance mindset and there's a scarcity mindset that we've all heard of, right? It's really, what lens do you typically operate from? How do you retrain your neural pathways? I do it all the time. If I walk by someone and I'm like, oh, wow, that was quite an outfit, I say, first of all, that was judgmental and you don't like being judgmental, so stop your internal narrative. And secondly, what can you say that's positive? I started doing this 5 or 6 years ago and everything exploded and changed in such beautiful ways in my life and for the people that I was leading. And we would talk about it. It doesn't mean we're all saintly. It doesn't mean we don't have the negative thoughts. It doesn't mean we don't think the judgmental things. The difference is we're not reactive, we're reflective, and we reframe into a hopeful, abundant thought pattern.
I really appreciate you defining abundance, because abundance nowadays is translating into a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar unicorn platform, and wealth does not buy health. So thank you for quantifying that. Ellen, let's segue over to you. I know that you have something that you really want to say in regards to this, with the hope that you've delivered so far when it comes to how we would like to see the youth operate in the future. Your mic as well.
Thanks for reminding me I was on mute. Yeah, I think that the message, to close, to convey, is that it's really, really important for young people to remember that success is not linear and success is not immediate. And one of the most important things that you can embrace today is adaptability and the ability to change with the circumstances. So there are many, many examples of young people who have overcome and still kept moving forward. Think about Simone Biles. Like, she walked out of the Olympics, however many years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, because she said she was just, her mind wasn't on it and she didn't want to hurt herself. And she's come back and she is still an incredibly respected athlete. And she's a young person who knew that success isn't a one-time thing. It's not linear and it's not immediate. There's another example here in the United States. There was a school shooting in Florida in 2020, I believe. And rather than just cowering and never wanting to go back to school, there were a group of young people who started an organization against gun violence. And one of the young men, whose name is, I believe it's Maxwell Frost, went on and he ran for Congress in Florida. And he is the youngest congressperson in the United States now, based on just believing I can take one step in front of another step. I don't have to do it all at once, and I can sort of refocus and move to the left, move to the right if I need to keep going.
Sure.
And the best way to do that is to build trusted relationships with people that can help you, because when you build trusted relationships, people, they know you and they want to help you.
That's very powerful. It seems to me there has to be a disposition of vulnerability to open ourselves to build trusted relationships with people that want to help you, because people can be so resilient to help. I know I'm guilty of this as well, if I had to be completely transparent. But what a lesson to end this off with. But I will ask this one word from each of our roundtable. This is a time capsule for tomorrow. If you could give one word, just one singular word, to be able to enter into this time capsule that we have together, what word would that be regarding hope, if you will? Just one singular word for the youth 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years from now that they would see. Asia, we'll begin with you, please, briefly. Your mic, please.
Okay. Together.
Powerful. Alita.
Miracles.
Incredible. Diane.
Strategy.
Business-minded. Christy.
Open-minded.
Well met. Ellen.
Agency.
How appropriate. Michael.
Vision.
Very forward-thinking. Trina.
Love.
Thank you, Roundtable. This has been a powerful discussion. I'll reserve my remarks for later on that. I think yours was quite sufficient. Audience, please take time to follow and to support our Roundtables panelists that joined us today. This has been an incredible experience to kick off our 2025 GatherVerse Youth Summit. Our gather was well. Thank you. And before we get into our next roundtable discussion, we wanted just to share a few things with Russell, with your mic unmuted, to say, Russell, how do you feel about that discussion that we just had before? What an incredible way to kick off GatherVerse Youth Summit. Yes?
Absolutely. It was, honestly, there was so much dropped there. And I think the two main points that came out of all that was, number one, obviously hope. And number two, I think, was trust. I think those two were referred a lot within the entire roundtable discussion. And, you know, I think those both are fundamental to any young person these days. In A, looking forward to the future, and also B, you know, being able to trust people, trust relationships, trust AI, trust emerging technology, being able to trust anything. Like, trust is a fundamental, I guess, foundation for anything, really. So whether that's a loving relationship that you have in the future, whether that's, you know, trusting what your teacher says. So yeah, no, honestly, it was such an interesting roundtable discussion. I think it was fantastic, and a fantastic way to kick off the entire summit today.
Why is trust so important? You know, we've had a number of different summits so far here in 2025, but we know thematically the trust seems to be rather persistent. Why is that, Russell?
I mean, trust, the reason why trust is so important is because having trust and authenticity and truthfulness, like being able to trust someone, is extremely important, because if you don't trust anyone, you're always going to be second guessing what they say, what they do, how they are, how they act. And if you don't trust someone, then how can you build a relationship with them? How can you build anything with another human, like another identity in general, or even AI, right? How can you trust AI, and how can you trust what that says to you? So I think trust is so important because you need to be able to build or have a way in which you can trust what something says or what something does, right? Because if you don't have that, then you're never going to trust anything. And then if you never trust anything, then you're not going to be able to achieve anything in life, right? And I think trust is just one sort of pillar within many other pillars.
It seems to me the same could be expressed when we want trust for humans, for people that we would like the same when it comes to our innovations.
Correct. And here's the thing, when I was younger, I was told never to trust anything you read, right? And that was just even newspapers, right? And you always needed a way in which you could verify something was real or not. And many years ago, there wasn't a way to do that, right? Whereas now, there are ways in which that can be done. So, for example, you have third-party sources that you can go through to verify if a news article is real, or if someone says something is real. You've even got X, right, where you can do it through community collaboration and be able to verify things. So being able to verify something and find out if it's the real truth and being able to trust that, that's very fundamental and key in allowing trust, right? And allowing to, believe in what is real and what is not. Because if there's no way to identify what is real, what isn't, well, then how do we know if even the world that we're living in now, like right here, like as I'm sitting here speaking to you, is even real, right? So, yeah, I think trust is fundamental in every single way, shape, or form.
It seems to me, Russell, in this closing few seconds before we call up our incredible roundtable that we have next, that when it comes to trust and verification, not only do we need better innovations when it comes to trust and innovation for these products and platforms and protocols and applications that we're undoubtedly inheriting at a rapid clip and hyperscale, but we also could benefit and stand to benefit to tap within our own hearts and minds to be able to find ways for us to be able to not only trust others, but to have trust and to be able to discover it and locate it within.
Correct. And I'll finish on this. Unless we have a future that trust can be done and verification can be done and allowing that to happen and blossom, then especially with AI, it's as we say, we want to have a hopeful, better future, right? And that's what everyone wants. And, verification and trust will allow that to blossom.
We have so many people that are with us at GatherVerse.live. To be candid, I didn't know that we would, being that it's spring, and especially here in the West, that people would have the time to, but it's so evident here. And then we do have some people that are even hanging out on our social media platforms, which are great as well. But we're so thankful to see everyone that's come to join us at GatherVerse.live audience. We're certainly with you, although we know we don't have a way for you to communicate directly with us, save for the emails and messages that you do send. We certainly, our hearts go with you, and thank you for spending time with us. And Russell, we have so much more to unpack, but for now, we're heading into technology and transition, balancing innovation and responsibility with a very well put together powerhouse roundtable that we're about to explore. And I know that you have a roundtable coming up, Russell, and so we're looking forward to spending more time with you as we arrive.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Russell. And to our audience, prepare for what's next, and may our gather be well. Greetings and welcome everyone once again. We're certainly happy to have you for the second roundtable discussion here at GatherVerse Youth Summit 2025. Roundtablists, we welcome you and we do ask that you would mute your mics at this time. We have quite a bit to unpack as we did in the first roundtable to kick off this discussion, but now I have before me incredible visionaries, leaders, and those that are truly putting in work, of whom we've had the pleasure of being here at GatherVerse before and some for the very first time, but undoubtedly knowing that from seeing everything that all of you have done, even as of late within the past few years, I'm really thankful to be able to assemble with you today. Undoubtedly, audience, you are about to explore into a cosmos of great thought, of anticipation for what it could be in the future of our youth, leading from generation to generation. You are in the presence of experts and leaders and those that do it humbly and graciously. I want a roundtable is for you to be able to, one, let the audience know who you are and why did you take the time to be able to ride with us today. Emily, we'll kick off with you, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Wright. I'm the creator of It'll Be Alright. I am a specialist in the psychology of discrimination and bias, and I host digital wellness workshops and seminars at local schools. It's cool to be at this point. I'm a zillennial, so I'm right in between Gen Z and millennial. So I remember life before cell phones, but I don't remember 9/11. So I'm in that kind of interesting gap there. I have a lot of friends and peers that are Gen Zers, so I am very aware of the impact of technology and culture on that generation and on mental health and mindset. So that brings me here today, and that inspires what I do. Thank you,
Emily,
everyone.
we welcome you in the entire Zillennial populace, if you will, and that's my first time hearing it. I am a Zennial, and that's a mixture between a millennial and Gen Xer. And a lot of Gen Xers don't believe that that's actually a title that exists. But in my mind, at least in my mind, it does. Elena, we're happy to have you with us.
Yeah, I'm super happy to be back. So thanks for having me. Also, what a wonderful panel discussion there was for this one. Like I had a look a little bit, and it was really nice to hear words about hope. I really hope there's going to be positive notes also in this discussion. So I'm Elena. I'm a blog founder and political economist based in Brussels. And today I'm going to speak also a little bit about a pro bono project I work on, which is this European Union Institute for Research, which is a very young think tank. And I research also with them for free, as in the past I benefited a lot from older people mentoring me when I was starting as a researcher. So I wanted to shed a light also on this project of mine.
We agree and welcome you. Thank you so much, Elena. And Carrie, welcome.
Hi, and thanks, Chris, for the invitation to join this conversation. I'm Carrie Pasquarello, victim advocate, safety strategist, CEO, author, and a proud mother of 3 children. And my mission centers on protecting our most vulnerable, especially our youth, through our community awareness and prevention programs. And why this conversation is so important to me is the digital world isn't just a space for our youth to connect, learn, create, and grow, but it's also where they can face real threats. And as a safety strategist and a victim advocate, I have seen firsthand how technology can both empower and endanger. And so I want to help shift that focus from being reactive to proactive through education and awareness. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Carrie. And thank you for the work that you're doing for betterment for all. And that's so much to what we're going to lean into today as well. And last but not least, Nadja, we welcome you once again.
Chris and everyone, yeah, happy to be here. So happy to see familiar faces and new ones as well. Thank you for this amazing gathering as always. I'm Natya Besta. I'm the co-founder of Adlunum. We build Web3 behavioral infrastructure. And my background is in psychology, education, systems, startups. So I think I've spent a lot of time over my career and my life thinking about, how people behave inside systems that were not built by them, and most of the time also were not built for them. And I think, this very pertinent discussion that we are having today about the youth, the next generation, and I loved how it kicked off immediately with all the different generations, and I'm this and I'm that. I have a Gen Z son that I world schooled, so I've had firsthand experience. I'm a millennial, so I'm that stereotypical, oh, we can never afford a house, we are doomed to forever kind of walk the lands of the lost. But at the same time, I'm also I work in tech, and I see that tech affects everybody. It might affect you differently depending on where you are at in your life stage. But I think never before has it been so important to bring in the youth and give them a seat at the table while they're still young and before they have any credibility. Because I think that's what was done with us, at least the previous generations. Sure, we'll put you up here as a poster child, but we don't actually want to hear what you have to say. You have to be a little bit older for that. So happy to be here, and perhaps not speak as a youth, but at least, keep in mind that ultimately we are giving them the seat at the table, and this is open if they would like to join. Very happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Naja, and we're very happy to have you here. Roundtable of panelists, we're very happy to have you as well. Audience, we're very happy to have you as well. And thank you for still assembling with us here at GatherVerse.live as we unpack. With a little bit of time that we have, panelists will stay on script and off script as we navigate and move forward in having this very candid, open, and transparent conversation. We certainly allow for anyone to chime in when they feel. We'll be calling on a number of you to be able to segue into this, and we'll operate today at this particular panel and in rapid fire, since we have a hive mind. There's a lot that I want to extract from the confines of your mind, given the firepower that's before me. And as you know, we take this very serious, as we should, with this limited capacity that we have. Carrie, we talk about transition, where we find ourselves in. And the reality is we've never seen technology adopted, subscribed, and innovated at this rapid clip as we see in what we call the hyperscalers that are hyperscaling, not only here in Silicon Valley, but transmetropolitan, transcontinental around the world. We're seeing Europe kick in when it comes to innovation. We're seeing the same thing in the UAE, elsewhere, Asia, so forth and so on, in Oceania, South America. We're seeing innovation come to our shores, not weekly and bi-weekly, but daily. Not even bi-daily, but daily. There's new AI model technologies that are deployed, and not just new models of small and large language foundational models, but new types of innovations that are integrated ecologically into these models. And they're cross-pollinating with technologies such as on-chain, if you will, and immutable ledgers that are needed. But the bigger question that I have, because we are in transition right now, aren't we? We're going from one way of doing a thing to another. And it's so fitting for this particular summit that we talk about our youth, because I think although we have all, if you will, mentioned to some degree about the generations that we come from, the days of our youth are certainly not what we find out, what we see in 2025. And our youth and future forward have a whole different world that they're heading into. And just as it was when we were young, we found ourselves at a transition, but not quite as volatile as this. My question is this, Carrie: what are we needed to be equipped with when it comes to transitioning safely into the new frontier of intelligence that we find ourselves arriving to?
Right. And that's such a great question. As somebody who focuses on risk mitigation, I believe we have so many responsibilities as we're looking at this new tech. Is not only can we develop this tech, but should we? And then in another line is, how can we prepare our youth to do it safely? And so one of the areas that I always focus on is the SEEK model, and that is safety, empathy, empowerment, and knowledge, making sure that our youth has the foundation to be proactive with their safety and security as they're blazing through this universe with this technology that is just so fast. So, having that SEEK model, the foundation created, making sure that we have education, the foundation for being able to identify some of the hazards that are in front of us. And then, of course, having the resources available should you need them. That's where I start.
But how do we start? How do we actually relay the SEEK model to the generations to come and that are arriving?
Right. So when I go through the Seek model, we start with first empathy. And empathy and innovation means designing with care, putting ourselves in the shoes of our users, and anticipating how technology impacts their life. So oftentimes when I'm looking through the lens of safety, I always want to find out, how is this technology going to impact our youth? What repercussions will happen if something goes wrong? And then making sure that we're covering all the what ifs to make sure that we have a full view of what the youth are stepping into. So once again, it's stopping, it's taking the time to have a conversation about how can we navigate in a safer manner.
And what is the hope when implemented successfully? What does success look like of implementation of this Seek model?
Right. Well, the ultimate goal would be that there'll be excellent mental health. We want to make sure that they're striving for creating a better future for themselves. It means that it's bringing people together to work collaboratively, really bringing our universe together in a smaller space, even though it's so large.
Incredible. And thank you for sharing that. We always want to leave with the air of optimism if we're afforded to. And there's a lot of different frameworks that are out there that exist. And we are so good at highlighting the problem. But my goodness, let's get to the benefit of why we want to address these frameworks and implement ecologically within the systems in which we inherit and operate within. So thank you so much for graciously explaining that, Carrie. We'll come back to you in just a moment. But Nadja, as someone that's a Web3 on-chain blockchain expert and someone that deals with this very cutting-edge, state-of-the-art, different types of technologies that are cross-weaving, interacting with one another. When we talk about the question that's on screen, how do we define responsible innovation in today's technologically advanced world? First of all, when we talk about responsible innovation and innovating at such a high clip, there's some that believe in this world that we must remove the vestiges of safety and trust out of the way so that we can operate even more efficiently and more fast. I'm of the belief that two things could be true at the same time, that we can operate ethically and innovate safely and fastly and accelerate at the same time. Does this register? And if it does, what does that mean when we look at the incredible technologies that many of us still to this day are unaware within the Web3 ethos?
Yeah, where to start? First of all, I would say I'm not sure that we are only now having to decide whether designing for safety is something that we should be doing or not. I think systems took a decision a long time ago to forego safety for the masses in favor of those that are benefiting from the system. So on the contrary, I think what has been happening over the last, it's quite difficult to know how far to go back. Do you go back to the 60s with the hippies, or do you go back, to the 80s with the cryptographers, or do you go back to Arab Spring? How far do you go back to say that we are clearly in a new kind of revolution, and that revolution is so multi-layered that I think the revolution ultimately is a redefining of definitions. So when we talk about innovation, we have a track record of innovation at all costs. The atomic bomb was innovation, right? And we learned too late that just because you can innovate doesn't mean that you now should play God. So the exact same thing is happening, of course, with AI right now. I care very deeply about us saying that, hey, we are actually designing this for the humans that live on this planet. But I'm also very well aware down on the ground that is just simply not how it works in business. So I think the point that we are coming to now is asking ourselves, when we talk about innovation, what does it mean to innovate? Because if I'm innovating for my investors, that's not innovation. Innovation, I think, has to be redefined. We have to say if it's innovation at the cost of things that we can't take back after we've lost them, or if it's innovation that's going to lead to large-scale fill in the blank, that we then have to take a step back. But the reality is we haven't ever, and I'm not sure we are going to start now as a system. The difference is now we have individual people. There are some people, if we use the example of AI, that are too scared of AI. many Gen Zers, for example. It's weird. I mean, I find it weird, but they don't seem to find AI as captivating, for example, as some of us do. So I think there's a lot of people that kind of say, this is new, this is sketchy. I don't know if I can trust this. I think the larger conversation should be, hey, let's put everything on the table and let's start defining if you actually could ever trust this, and can you trust it now? So I think it's a very exciting time to be defining what does it mean to responsibly innovate. It's never going to be something at a board member meeting. It's always going to be something that's grassroots. And I think now more than ever, the technology exists for people to understand that they can empower themselves. And I think ultimately that's the kind of ground up or bottom up innovation that we need. People need to say, hey, I'm engaging with these tools on a daily basis. I'm not sure I like how this is going. But then that's a larger conversation about when do people think and how, what prompts them to think. So yeah, hopefully we'll get into that during the panel.
We will. And I also want to get into it with you in particular about the cadence and the tempo and the accelerated fashion of innovation. And have we missed the window of opportunity to be able to catch up, Elena, with the work that you're doing when it comes to think tank, if you will, in the process of thinking? We are seeing many, many and several different think tanks coming together, arriving with the intent to understand how do we tackle and confront this sizable scale of innovation that it was beautifully expressed with Naja saying that's multi-layered. How apropos to be able to express such a thing when it comes to this transition. I've never heard it stated that way, but yet it's so anyhow. Elena, what are they thinking in think tanks when it comes to this? And do you find that it serves to the benefit of our youth and generations to come? And in this thinking, are there actionable steps that you believe that are being assembled so that we can keep up with the current and present rate of hyperscale?
Yeah, I mean, that's, as always, a fantastic question.
Hold off on that, Naja. I routed that over from Elena. We'll get back to you.
Please, Elena, happy to hear from you.
We can reply that together with Naja because I think she touched on so many right points. And I think it's also interesting to see the difference from Europe to the US, because one major issue I think is that what is in Europe for young people is this thing of especially when it comes to policy, because the think tanks I work in are policy think tanks, is that you always have a set way of expressing yourself or channeling your ideas. So in Europe, I think it's very difficult to have an innovative idea and to implement that innovative idea. And if we go to the basis of innovation, grassroots, as Naja said, innovation is about something new. It's about also new people. And Europe, especially in certain countries, has specific classes of people that have better skills, better education, that have access to innovation. And then there is very big parts of the population that completely access even the possibility to innovate, I think, which is the real problem, because you're not going to have new ideas if you don't have new people. And then you're required to make those ideas come true according to very rigid standards in Europe, including in think tanks. I was very lucky so far that I had a few of my own projects, so I could set my own standards. But many, even researchers in Europe, they don't have that luck. So they're said, like, if you want to write something like this, then you're going to have, like, I don't know, 10 editors, and they're going to take out part of what you said because it's like not in line with what you're supposed to say. And I assume this is even more problematic when you do business like Naja. So I think it would be interesting to see how that compares with the US, because I think many, like, businessmen, businesswomen, when it comes to Europe, they also cannot access doing innovation in Europe for this reason, because for them it's difficult to understand these rules. And this is something that I'm very worried about, to be honest, because I think innovation in Europe is going to decline if like non-Europeans are not going to be able to access our innovation market, but also if a lot of young Europeans are not to be able to access innovation, because not just because they don't have the financial resources, but also because they don't have the education for that. Because if you don't have, for example, like a mentor or a family member that can teach you how to be a businessman, for example, you're not going to find that very easily. And to be honest, I even think if you're like a big tech CEO coming to Europe, you would definitely need a mentor right now. I don't know what's your experience, but
I find that rather interesting is the consideration that if we aren't guiding the generations to come, then AI certainly will, won't it, Emily? And my concern is that if I go back not too long ago in the not so far distant past of looking at hyperscale accelerated fashion into applications renaissance from 2007 circa to 2019, if you will, that these technology platforms here in Silicon Valley and elsewhere became wildly and dramatically wealthy overnight. And platforms were deployed that have never reached our shores before, our hands, in democratized fashion. We were given tools and applications. I think about this, Emily, in the sense that today's innovations, these aren't just applications we're building. These applications speak to us. They talk to us. They can see us. They can hear us. Some with the capability sooner rather than later will be able to examine our very own dispositions. I say all that to say in a very 40,000 foot fashion, Emily, I have a real concern when it comes to the ethical or unethical governance structures, when it comes to trust, and when it comes to even the think tanks assembling in the world. What are they thinking about when it comes to technology and what little influence and impact that they have in confronting what it is that our youth are inheriting? Because if we cannot even keep up with the level of acceleration and we are the innovators, do we really actually know what it is that we're giving to our generations to come? And what are the consequences of us not knowing our innovations with the express capability of AI being almost recursive and being able to upgrade and upscale its own self? What are the ramifications that we're looking at, Emily? And how do we even enter into this fray to make a difference? And can we?
That's a good point about the, I kind of think of a domino effect of these small things that we didn't necessarily notice at the beginning when we first laid out these services and these programs and these applications. The way it blows up over time can have serious consequences. And when it comes to the younger generations, and especially a whole generation of people that spend a good chunk of their day on social media, they're consistently subject to programming and reprogramming. And if they don't have the empowerment to understand that and to navigate that, then you start to lose sovereignty of self and sovereignty of thought. And if you don't have the emotional grounding and understanding to be able to navigate those fields, then it's hard for us to predict how our behavior and how our reactions are being changed and being manipulated. And again, when it comes to the people that are designing these systems and creating these programs, I don't think they necessarily know that that is what could happen down in the long run. You know, everyone has different priorities, and the culture of business right now has a specific priority. We often associate that with profit. And when it comes to this transition, as you'd mentioned, Nadia, there's a lot of different levels to this transition. There's a lot of different things that are playing at the same time. And although we are experiencing a transition in terms of technology and innovation, there's also an economic transition. There's this economic transition from a survivalist economy to a creationist economy. And that's something that the youth are aware of, but not necessarily empowered to fully understand the gravity of. But there is the recognition and the fear that we can't keep doing it the same way, and things that worked for previous generations in terms of jobs and income isn't necessarily going to work that way for us. So policy is important, and bringing youth voices into these think tanks and into these conversations is important, because we need to understand what kind of lifestyle we want moving forwards. We have a lot of life left ahead of us. So the decisions that get made today have repercussions in our life for a lot longer. So there is that awareness there.
And Emily, if we lose sovereignty or autonomy of thought to think, does that lead way for the right or the role of fulfillment to come from machines as opposed to humans?
Yeah, and I think that speaks to a definition of fulfillment, for one. Like if fulfillment, I think, is an emotional thing, it's something that comes from within, but there is satisfaction as well. There's like fulfillment and the satisfaction, and you can be satisfied with your life, and that can be a more of a process in your brain in terms of being satisfied and having that fix and that need. And you can get that dopamine hit from internet already, like from scrolling already, we can get that. But there is that concern of steering, of how we're being steered to have a particular worldview and particular expectations of reality and ourselves, and our expectations of what we should want, rather than being able to step aside, take ourselves as ourselves and be like, what do I want?
Sure.
And yeah.
Nadja, I think about, from your personal role as an innovator, as a technologist, as someone that has really stood before audiences and helped them to decipher and to really deconstruct, to bring it down to bite-sized levels of understanding of what it is that we've innovated within, in particular, the past 24 to 36 months. Do we have more of a need for innovators to become educators today in this era? Because I have a concern that we're building models, if you will, that are serving as educators. We use it, let's be honest, let's be transparent. I think all of us use AI every single day of our lives. I know that I do. There's nothing taboo about it anymore. I think the more transparent you are about using it, I honestly think the better. But to that point, Nadja, are you seeing the need for us as innovators to become educators, and not only teaching the world, but teaching machines and staying ahead of them when it comes to helping to understand responsible innovation, ethical innovation, and best use cases for applications? Because we all know that innovations today can be used in a very, very unsafe way. And we'll go and jump into that with after you, Nadja, to carry on this. But I'd like for you to allow us to come into your world a little bit.
I want to go back to first principles. We all have nervous systems, and our nervous systems are freaking wrecked. So I think, before we touch on anything else, we as a species have just had a freaking insane ride. And I think every generation says that, and every generation believes that no one has ever, meant it that much or deserved it that much before. So we are just the latest. But I mean, if you just literally feel into your body as you are sitting here right now or standing, although I'm not sure who would stand for an hour, how does it feel? Like, how do you feel in the world right now? I think that's a question that we are not asking ourselves enough. Christopher, you ask about whether innovators should become educators. I think the problem is that complexity is really scary. And we live in an extremely complex world and society. And especially now, the complexity is increasing with hyperspeed or at hyperspeed. So now it's a question of, oh my God, if you didn't catch up already with navigating your nervous system, your brain, your physical being, your social being, your emotional being, there's a lot of stuff that makes up us, right? And so the education system didn't equip us to live in this world. Socialization, God bless it, did all it could, but it hasn't really done enough. And so we are left with this really just gaping void of now having to rise up to the occasion of being this incredibly evolved species that's going to tackle the bull by the horns. I mean, yeah, you know, if this was your child that you were talking about, you'd have a little bit more empathy and go, wait, maybe we need to slow down a second. So I think the problem for me, at least, is, you know, we can put a whole lot of labels on it, but unless we get comfortable with the uncomfortable, unless we get comfortable saying, hey, there's probably never going to be an answer to these really complex questions, and we are always going to feel like we are in Dante's Inferno and we don't know when we're going to get out of this. I think that's a much healthier way to look at things. Like, I find joy in the ridiculously absurd, not because I'm weird, although that's also the case, but because life is ridiculously absurd. And so what else am I supposed to find out of it? So I think, you know, when we talk about should we be educating others, I think we should be thinking in public. I think there's a dishonesty in terms of just our thinking process. You know, I don't know if you guys remember, there was a viral thing a while ago where people realized some people don't have an internal monologue, and the internet went wild and everyone was like, oh my God, some people don't think. I mean, I found it fascinating that everyone was so interested in everyone else's brain. And we don't do that. We don't share our brain. So I don't want to know what an innovator thinks. I want to know how they think, because that's really what's going to help me. If I can weave together how this person thinks and how that person thinks, then I'm also an innovator, because we need to innovate here. Like, this is your best friend or your worst enemy. And I can tell you, in a world where AI is the new brain, you have to use it as a thinking partner, because otherwise it's going to, you know, eclipse you as your own thinking partner.
You know, as abstract as it's almost chaotic as what you just said sounds, I find it rather appropriate for the mindset of the innovators heading into the frontier. Is this what more or less you're conveying, Naja?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, if we are all incredibly brutally honest with ourselves, we don't know what the world is going to look like in a year from now. Everything that we held dear to be reality, like the foundations of reality, are no longer true. Like, everything is up in flux. So there's no way that we can prepare for anything. Get comfortable with the madness and the chaos, and then start surfing, I guess, is the, you know, the takeaway.
Carrie, can you route in on that? I know there's something that you want to express on that based on the work that you're doing. I find it so intriguing and fascinating of this outlook for the frontier. I've never considered it this way before. Thank you, Naja. Carrie, please.
Yeah, I think we have to stop and just really insert, we need to touch grass, right? We need to go out and explore the world and get connected with our human friends, because like you said earlier, with AI, it's hearing us, it's seeing us, but it's also learning from us. And I did a really interesting prompt the other day when I was using AI. I said, tell me something about myself that I don't know, right? And there it was. It spit out this beautiful paragraph about me. And these were things that I never took the time to add into any of the information that I've shared with AI. And so I found it really amazing how we can connect with AI, but how on the opposite side, we really need to make sure we're connecting with our friends, collaborating on a different level. Because just like what was said, we're in this warp speed of development, and we really need to make sure that we're staying grounded to actually reality, making sure we're taking in situational awareness, making sure that we're using mental health strategies for ourselves, whether it's breathing, box breath, other types of areas to really help with our mental health, so that we can be better served in this world. And I think as we go back to even the education part, we're learning so much from AI, but we need to take time and understand the safety side of this, that, you know, our youth needs to recognize the manipulative design that is inside a lot of our tech, so they can choose when they want to participate and when they don't want to participate. And I think that just goes right back into my formula, the SEEK method: safety, empathy, empowerment, and knowledge. That's where it really resonates with me.
It seems to me that there's a certain level of fortification that needs to happen within for us to be able to enter into this frontier of where we find ourselves, Elena. I sit here and think about the comments just expressed by Naja and Carrie. I remember Naja gave an example so many summits ago about she was in a taxi cab somewhere in the world. She's well traveled, but she was in a taxi cab and she asked the cab driver about, or perhaps it was an Uber driver, forgive me, Naja, about, have you heard of ChatGPT? And they haven't. And I think about, Elena, your sentiments when you talk about the disbalance often that you relate to Europe and America, if you will, the West, and then elsewhere, obviously around the world. How do we keep up with this disbalance and this cadence and this tempo of accelerated fashion when it comes to the different types of innovations that we're seeing that are so powerful when adopted, when even known that they exist, that are so powerful in the hands of people that have never accessed such utility and tool? It seems to me that this speaks to what you've talked about in the past about the necessity for collaboration. Is this a time that's needed for collaboration more so than ever before? Or do we serve better in the benefit of going off into this creative renaissance that's rapidly approaching that really feels so present? Do we start to operate almost in a more minimal fashion as opposed into group and startup traditional fashion of innovating product for product? Is this the time for thinkers?
Yeah, I think that this is a moment where, like, not just collaboration is needed, but time is really needed, because we have a moment where there are people that have a lot of money, innovators that have a lot of money, but seems to me that the difficulty is about finding time even for these people. And I think when it comes to innovation, the issue is really about time, like what type of consequence the innovations we develop will have in a short and longer time. And when it comes to younger people, it's also the same issue. Many times it's not about just finding the money to finance their ideas. Like the Draghi report talked about a 800 billion investment gap, which I think it's part of the problem, because if there isn't like time given freely by more experienced people to those who receive the funding, there is not going to be much change. And at the same time, I think that we should collaborate in bringing our approaches together, because I think in Europe there is this idea of don't do something risky because you're going to end up very badly. Like, don't do an innovation because like disrupting the status quo is a bad idea. And I guess this comes from our history. And I think the American Revolution is so interesting, because it's this case of a colony that actually tried to do something risky and it turned out very, very well. But at the same time, I think Americans, they tend too much on the other side. Sometimes it's everything so fast. And right now, I really believe that we should find a middle ground between being so constricted as Europeans, because the risk is about leaving big parts of our population behind, and being so fast-paced as Americans, because you might have very good short-term outcomes, but then you might have bigger risk in the long run, and to always factor in how important time is. Yes, and also I thought it was so brilliant for Naja to mention Dante, because I think in Italy we have, I mean, of course we have Dante, but we have a lot of culture, and many times culture it seems to lack value, and it's also something that requires time. So I think there is this idea of almost like losing time in Italy. We have this otium idea, which I think complements very well AI and engineering and everything that is so fast-paced and efficient. The two of them have to go together.
Perhaps in this equivalent, the time is the greatest disruptor. I sit here under the sound of each of your voices and I just feel the synergistic harmony that is relaying, at least in my mind, of how we enter into the frontier, Emily. And I think about the sentiments that Elena just conveyed when we talk about time. that so many people are grasping for just a little bit more time to be able to implement whatever type of strategy or whatever type of framework or whatever type of manifesto that they want to insert to be able to make sure that not only themselves that get it right, but certainly to those that deploy. But it seems like we're insufficient of time. Maybe, my goodness, the models that are being developed just last week are almost archaic compared to the ones that arrive days or weeks later, that there's just not enough time for the human populace to wrap their mind around the incremental progressive growth of what's being deployed and distributed into the world. And there's a consequence to pay for that, isn't there? That we continue to see marginalized communities or communities, let's just say the technologists, us and them, technologists and everyone else versus everyone else fits into a wide bracket of a bucket that aren't served and are not given the opportunity. But it seems to me, Emily, that now is the time more than ever for greater cultural contribution that's needed in this world. You know, we talk about the superhero engine or She Summit that we had this year. We talk about the need for more women and women founders to be funded so that they get implemented, that they can create and build and contribute to this nexus, if you will, of this corpus that's being developed and built of semi-intelligence. And when that doesn't happen, there is something to be missed, because these models are so invasive in our lives. They will control our algorithms. They will be the ones that are conducting surgery in surgical theaters. They'll one day become politicians, believe it or not. They'll be serving us in all different types of capacity in the world. And do we have enough time, A, to wrap our minds around what this means for humanity now that we have this new alien species? And I say it just like that with great intent. This new species that's arrived, do we have enough time? And then B, my bigger concern is for the ones that did not get the opportunity to contribute, knowing that these machines take from the ones that instilled the data from their consciousness or from their mindsets to these. Are we about to inherit the greatest disbalance we've ever come in contact with, that where all humanity did not get the opportunity to contribute to these machines that will very much help guide and run and govern society? I see a great threat with that when it comes to marginalization. And do we have enough time, as Elena has said, to do anything about it?
I mean, the issue of legacy perpetuating is very important to me. And legacy is something that I consider a lot. And I think our technology and the algorithms that we rely on are kind of a mirror to that legacy in terms of representation of what we see and whose voices and stories are being accurately portrayed. You know, we've seen over the years how there have been discrepancies between what we see coming out of this technology versus reality, and that's because of our perception, and it's because of the perception of the people that are designing that originally, and that bias is perpetuated through these programs, and then we inherit that too. It comes into us through that steering and through that programming. And when it comes to time, keeping us in a state of rush and making us feel like we don't have enough time is just one of the tools of oppression. It's one of the ways in which we are kept distracted from the greater issues at hand, but also ourselves, our internal state, our emotional state, and it prevents us from pursuing that fulfillment, as we spoke about earlier, and it prevents us from pursuing the opportunities to create a lifestyle of our choosing. So that is something that I'm aware of. I'm very aware of how important it is that we bring as many voices and perspectives in as possible to this, because when you have a problem, if you're only going from one perspective, it's going to be hard for you to find a solution.
As remedial as it may sound, Elena, I must ask as a follow-up, what are the benefits of more time?
Well, I really think that the biggest issue with innovation is that you don't get right away what is going to be applied to. So I guess I don't know. For example, now with AI, XR, we use it for gaming mainly, but I think it's going to be used a lot for health, for example. But maybe in 10 years, we're going to use it for something that's completely unrelated to that. Like this only comes with time and with including more people that were not working on that specific innovation right away, so they didn't have such a specific idea of it. And I think that if you right away feel the urge to define what you're creating or even regulate what you're creating, that is going to be very restrictive of that innovation, and that you need to give innovation time to grow, like spontaneously. I think that's something very important.
And I find it fascinating, Carrie, when I think about when we started to see the deployment of these generative AI models and diffusion models, GAN CNNs, if you will, that it was said, it was bifurcated really, that on one hand, we'll have more time than we've ever had before because the models will be able to do our work, Naja. And Carrie, it was also said within the same breath that we would either have more time or we would do 10 to 20x more work than what we do now. I certainly feel like we don't have more time. So it seems that we know where that's led us to. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, time is precious, right? And we only have so much in life. And I have to go back to the making sure that all the communities are heard with our time. And it seems like the equalizer is always education. And I don't know if everybody knows that there's a free resource. It's called edx.org. And some of our top universities around the world offer free education to anybody around this world. And this is one of the ways that we can hear the voices that we need to hear, the voices of our youth, and that they can be educated and come to the table and have critical thinking skills. And, because I look at our youth and I say, protecting them today, those are the ones that are going to be our tech creators, our developers, our innovators, our decision makers of tomorrow. And so the time that we give them today, whether we're mentoring younger people or our youth, is so critical. And like you all have said, we only have so much time on Earth, and we have to make sure we use it wisely. And I think by prioritizing safety, ethics, and digital responsibility, we're going to be shaping and helping the future and making sure that we're using our time really well.
And lastly, Naja, we'll end with you. We have to bring this to a conclusion, but my goodness gracious, I can go the distance with each of you. I have such an appreciation and quite frankly, an admiration for those that are sitting here before me now. And Naja, we talk about this subject of time. We talk about there's multi-layers and heading into this new state of frontier intelligence. It's dramatic to me because as a technologist that's so entrenched in technology, I realize from my lens that most people do not see the coming wave, and that everything that we're dealing with tonight when it comes to AI is nothing compared as to someone said that we won't even know what the world will look like a year from now. When it comes to this frontier that we're entering into, whether we like it or not, what are the things that you think is most important to convey to our youth and equipping them internally with what they need within to be able to go into this new terrain?
Yeah, I'll make the answer very personal, in the hopes that there is a young person out there watching this. When I was young, it was also a new world to me for very different reasons to the world that's new to the young people of today. But I was full of dreams. I was an idealist. I was called naive. And then everyone assured me that I would grow up to the point where I would accept this world that we live in and all its problems because, it's just young people who dream, but it's not possible. I never accepted it, but it was very hard because they were not systems that supported my belief. Today there is. So I managed to hold on and for dear life. I think if you are young today, the battle is much bigger than it was when I was, a young person 20 years ago. But you also have tools that didn't exist back then. The gift of tools that ultimately end up enslaving us is on the way there. It also empowers us. So I would say that, be very realistic about what is happening. I think the youth of today are more realistic than we are because they've come into a world, that's very different from the one that we came into. One might even say they are more nihilistic. But see the reality for what it is and understand that tomorrow is yours. And start today, and you already have, because what you guys are doing, the next generation, is not what the millennials did. We said we don't like the old systems, but sure, we'll play by the rules anyway because we need them. Gen Z and beyond say, I don't like it, I'm not going to do it, bye. So I guess just keep on doing that, but do it in a way that, when you become parents, that you can still look back and be proud of what you did.
Sure enough, I certainly hope, Elena, that ends us off on a good note. Audience, I mean this in earnest and sincerity. When it comes to Emily, Elena, Carrie, and Naja, go follow them. Go not only see what they're doing today, but what they've been doing, let's just say in the past 6 months to a year. I believe that you'll find it rather intriguing. You'll be edified, and they are great people to follow when it comes to the endeavors of the career path, the human path, and geared towards better understanding. I really have a type of adoration for each of you, and I'm so thankful to be able to sit here under the sound of your voice. You're professionals in every sense of the word. You are leaders, and you're doing incredible things. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we have up next extraordinary roundtable discussion, or fireside, I should say. We have a fireside summit coming up next with regards to the inheritance of tomorrow with Lynn Jattal and Jody Bondi Norgard. They're about to unpack something serious. We're so thankful to have each of you that are still with us after the heels of 2 powerful roundtable discussions. This is a very personal and a very almost emotional youth summit. And I feel like just now I found a better way to head into frontier intelligence for the extraordinary ladies that I just had the opportunity to join with and roundtable or gather as well. May our gather be well.
Hello, and greetings. So, welcome to the first fireside chat of the GatherVerse Youth Summit. I am very, very excited. With me, I have the one and only Jody, who she's gonna tell us who she is. But just a hint of who she is: she's an entrepreneur, she's an author, she's a leader. There's just so many titles to her, and I can't do the best justice to introduce her. So, we will be talking about the inheritance of tomorrow, an ode to our youth. And shout out to the previous panels. Thank you for setting the pace up, and we're just climbing a little bit notch higher. So, Jody, welcome to the stage. We're very, very happy to have you here. Tell us who you are and why you are here.
Well, thanks for having me, and it's nice to meet you in person, Len. I'm Jody Bondi Norgard. I'm the founder of Dream Big Toy Company and the creator of Go-Go Sports Girls, which is a line of sports dolls for girls, encouraging them to be healthy physically, mentally, and emotionally through sports and physical activity. I'm also the author of More Than a Doll: How Creating a Sports Doll turned into a fight to end gender stereotypes, which just launched in January. So those are my 2 titles. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an author, and I'm also an activist. And I worked with the Biden administration White House Gender Policy Council when it came to content and toys for children and media and content. So that is in a nutshell what I have done. And it's only been 20 years that I have been fighting for equality, but I do have a socially responsible product that I was an entrepreneur, but I also had social change in mind. And I quickly found out that I was not in the toy business, but I was in the business to create change.
Wonderful. So it's a very, very big honor to have you here. And of course, as a youth, I am the youth, and the youths that are watching out there, we look forward to learning more from you. And that is a very powerful way to kick off. I've heard your story, I have seen your bio, and one thing that stands out for me when it comes to you is your leadership. And this brings me to the first question. What key leadership lessons can the youth learn from you as a female entrepreneur and author? I tend to think that you're a disruptor being in the toy industry. And how can they break the barriers to pursue that kind of leadership?
Well, I had an aha moment, but it was many situations that built up to my aha moment. So to answer your question, it's if you see something that's not right, question it. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to challenge the status quo. If we don't challenge the status quo, we will never move forward and invent, the future.
Yes.
So if we stick with the status quo, we're just going on that track, and it's just, it's flat. And it's okay to, if things are working, it's okay. But if you see things that aren't working, it's okay to ask those questions. It's okay to challenge the status quo. And I have to, just point out too, it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to be wrong. I think a lot of times people don't like to ask questions, I think it's just human nature, because you don't want to be wrong. You're in a situation where it's like you're putting yourself out there. But it may not be your question that leads to change. It may be, 10 questions down the road that you, figure out like how I'm going to do it 100 questions down the road.
Yeah. That resonates with me because personally, I'm a young person. I believe we're in a generation when it comes to my people my age. We are in a generation where we question the status quo. We do what we want to do, or we question what was the old system, like just someone who expressed earlier. Just tell us more about the role of persistence. Yes, we are questioning systems that have been there for years, and we want something new, we want something better. But just tell us more about the role of persistence. How do we bring in persistence and more values that can really play a role in building new systems and improving the humanity?
Yeah, but persistence is a quality that allows someone to do something that is difficult or opposed by others. So it's not easy, right? It's not easy at all. It comes with a lot of baggage. But I've always viewed persistence as I've moved along. I mean, there's a fine line of being persistent and annoying, and persistent and doing something that you're on the right track, right? It's just like, I know this change needs to happen. For me, it's like simple in my mind. It's just fighting for equality. Like, why wouldn't everybody think equality is okay? If we saw the world equally through the eyes of, all genders, all races, we would just have greater balance throughout the world. But that is a challenge. So along with persistence, you have to be determined. And when it's fueled by passion, then it becomes a mission.
Yeah, I'm taking notes from that. There's something you mentioned that I can't help following up with that. What is the difference between persistence and annoyance? What is the line there?
What's the difference between persistence and what?
And being annoying.
Right. Okay, think about like a young kid, right? Yeah, they can be, I want a piece of candy, I want a piece of candy. I mean, that, there can be that, persistence that can be annoying, right? Like if you're, persistently talking about something and, you're not getting those social cues, like stop talking about it, right? I guess this persistence is, it's listening.
Mm-hmm.
It's finding the avenues that can take you to the next level. There are many times I had roadblocks in my journey, And I never saw them as, that I had to stop. It was just a detour. I needed to figure out, how do I get around those? Because I know I need to figure out the next step.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for highlighting that. I couldn't agree more. You also mentioned something with equality, and you have been talking about equality. It has always been on your radar. And I just want to just tell us what it looks like to be in an equal society. You are in the media industry, you are in the toy industry, and this is what you've been doing for years. What does true representation in toys and other industries look like, even for the next generation? Maybe you can make even a prediction for the next generation.
Right. So there isn't a country in the world that has true equality, and in fact, the World Economic Forum predicts that we're 136 years. It keeps going up, which is unfortunate, to see true equality. So I see that there are many self-help classes for people as we get older, and I'm in the female space, so I will just say there are a lot of self-help classes for women. But there are also a lot of issues for young boys as they grow up. When my kids were younger, I saw that there was, the toys marketed to kids. It was, for girls around the age of 6, 7, and 8, it started to be with appearance and attractiveness. And then for the boys, it was more, they're geared towards violence and aggression. And that just didn't make sense to me, because my daughter was super smart, and I didn't want her to say, oh gosh, I have to all of a sudden just focus on my appearance. And my boys were not violent or aggressive, nor did I want to encourage that. So my point in my journey has been we need to look at the root of the problem. Where do these gender stereotypes, where do stereotypes start? Well, it's before the age of 5. Because at the age of 5, that's when those stereotypes set in. And unfortunately, girls by the age of 5 start believing that their gender can't do as much as the male gender, which is crazy business.
Yes, I believe that is very, very true. It starts at the age of 5. And I can even recall, for me, one of the stereotypes that I came across when I was a child, being in an African context, is there's some things girls can see it, girls see it this way, they don't see it that way, girls talk this way, they don't talk. Those kind of rules. And when you grow up with the mindset of don't do this, don't do that, because those are the stereotypes that were fed in your mind. So I really, really resonate with that. And this leads me to another question. You're an author, you said you've published your book, and congratulations for that. I'm looking forward to see it. What word do you have for youths out there who want to write something, who want to do something big, something unique, something that has not been done before, like what you're doing? What is your encouragement for them?
A couple things. When you're writing a book, just write it down. Seriously, I'm a good writer. I'm a good college paper writer, but I have a really great editor, and I had another editor with my agent and another editor with my publisher. And whenever a book gets out there, you have many people working on it. So it's not just you going into that and, cold turkey. It's just write down your ideas. There are so many stories out there that need to be told, and people are just afraid of writing down their thoughts. So again, like if you were to look at what I originally sent my editor, you'd be like, that's probably a good college paper. But what came out, through my editor was a really amazing book. So you just write down your thoughts, and then if you have a great idea. I always keep a notebook by my bed. I write down things all the time. Some of my ideas are really good, and some of them are really bad. So it's okay, right? Just jot them down, because some will be just that one that will be the right one for you to move forward.
Yes, very profound. Just a quick one as a follow-up of that, and then we close off. We have another roundtable coming up. Do you think we're going to have more AI writers, by the way, when it comes to writing? And how do you see that play, AI writing and others like you? How do you see that in the
Ooh, That's really an interesting question right now, especially in publishing, because there's with Meta has taken a lot of books. Not There are a lot of lawsuits out there right now, and teaching AI, say, how to write like a famous writer. So it's teaching AI how to write, which in the publishing industry, they're trying to get a handle on this. So, when it comes to, say, everyday writing, everyday email, I have found it amazing. Like, it really can, put my words into, it saves me a lot of time, put it that way. It saves me a lot of time. So I kind of like to look at it like the calculator, right? Way back when the calculator was invented, a lot of people were like, do not do that. That's going to be, it's going to ruin everything. Well, it didn't. So I'm trying to embrace AI in that way, though there are many issues that are way above my pay grade, so that I can't talk about. But definitely, I find it when my everyday writing, it has really helped.
Yes, it helps everyone. I can attest to that. It's part of my writing as well. Well, Jody, we can go a distance, but we only have much time. It was such an honor to talk to you, and we look forward to have you back again at GatherVerse. Thank you so much for your insights, and for our audience, I encourage you kindly follow Jody, buy her book, follow what she does, and all will be well. So our fireside was well. Over to you, the GatherVerse studio. Thank you, Jody.
Thank you, Lynn.
Hello and welcome to someone's got their microphone muted there. Welcome to the roundtable. My name's Russell and I am the moderator for this session. And amazing fireside chat there with Lynn and Jody. And in this roundtable discussion, we have a discussion around to the youth: lead with heart, build with purpose, and embrace responsibility. We have an amazing set of panelists here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a 30-second introduction from each of you. And then once we had the introductions, then we'll get straight into the questions. So we'll start to my right, this side. This side. There we go. So Masni, you are up first. So please introduce yourself and welcome as well to the GatherVerse Youth Summit.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Russell. Hi, everyone. A very good morning. It is actually 1:15, almost about 1:30 a.m. in Singapore.
Oh, God. Good morning indeed.
Yeah, hi, I am Masni Go, and I'm the founder of mindcoach.sg. I've got over 20 years of experience in the corporate world, from technology space, and I also have done business consulting and also entrepreneurship. I help individuals and teams navigate transitions with clarity and purpose. So I'm also passionate about empowering people to lead with empathy and resilience. I feel honored to be here to share insights on how we can build a more compassionate and responsible future together.
Thank you for joining us, Masni. And we'll go to our next contestant, or not contestant, actually, panelist. But Deshaun, over to you. Please, 30-second introduction from yourself and welcome to the GatherVerse Youth Summit.
Thank you for the opportunity. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dishon J.M. Mochia. I am the founder of Apishi Technologies, where we use data and technology to create immersive experiences tailored to businesses' specific goals. So if it is your brand, you're trying to make it more immersive, or you have a workplace where you have employees and want to keep them a bit longer so they can be more productive, we are your partner. I live in Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, Deshaun. And now we head over to the AI expert himself, Matt Matt, welcome. Please introduce yourself and welcome to the GatherVerse Youth Summit.
Hello, I'm very thankful for being here, Russell. So my name is Matt Magera. I'm the CEO of Talanta AI. So a little bit about what we do. So I run a job technology platform based here in Kenya as well, like Dishon. So we help people get jobs. And on the other hand, we are helping recruiters and HR manage and hire people. We are an AI first platform. So we built a lot on top of the new AI technologies. And I'm happy to be here and share my experiences and the work I've done over the past couple of years. Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us, Matt Magara. Now heading over to Ralph. Welcome, Ralph. Please, a 30-second introduction from yourself. And Grace Self Technology. That sounds great name.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. My name is Isa Raphael. I am the CEO and founder of Grace Self Technologies here in Nigeria, in Africa, by the way. And we do a couple of things around emerging technologies like extended reality, artificial intelligence, and blockchain. We have a unique focus on agri-tech as well, because we see that Africa is agriculture is Africa's superpower. So we're innovating heavily around that space and to bring the youth back to agriculture, and all of that. So that's what we do currently here. I'm excited to be here and to share what we've been doing and how the youth can take leadership of the coming generation.
Pleasure to have you with us, Ralph, and thank you very much for your introduction. And Khalid, welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, and good evening to everyone. My name is Khalid El Garoud. I'm from the Kingdom of Bahrain, leading the organizational Growth Foundation, which we operate in Bahrain, Kuwait, UAE, and in Bali. We work very closely with family offices, and we build succession plan for new generation of family office. As well, we focus on the youth development through internship programs and also youth empowerment programs. And also we work very closely with the young ones in building their confidence and how they can overcome bullying in their young age.
Well, thank you for joining us, Khalid, and that's amazing that you do that. Very excited to hear more from yourself. And sorry, I got to ask, how do you say your name? Is it Abalik? Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Awesome. Please introduce yourself, Abalik.
Hi, Russell, and hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. This is Abhilek Verma. Though I live in Hyderabad, India, but currently I'm in Singapore for GTEx, and I'm also a Microsoft MVP in AI. So I deliver a lot of lectures on ChatGPT and Copilot and run my edtech startup as well. This is my 4th time at GatherVerse, so it's always a pleasure to be here as a panelist and discuss more for the youth. So my startup solves the same problem which everyone is talking about, jobs and internships, using AI/ML to match recruiters with students looking for jobs and internships. But I also spend a lot of my time learning things with AI and ML. So yeah, lucky to be here again and looking forward for a great session today. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, Abalik. And Dorcas, welcome. I think that's how you say your name, right? I just want to make sure I get that correct. Awesome. So please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dorcas Njuguna. I am an executive leadership coach by John Maxwell. I'm also the founder of IHR Solutions. We work very closely with the youth, and one of the most critical things I do every quarter is interact with the universities and see how we can link them up with the industry, or basically link them up with what is happening at work. So I'm happy to be here. This is it should be my 2nd time at GatherServe, and I really love the work you do.
Amazing. It's great to have you and Abalik back. And thank you so much, both of you, for coming back. And last but not least, Alexander, welcome. Please introduce yourself. And it's great to have you with us as well. Oh, please unmute your microphone. Your microphone is muted.
You had
there we go.
Muted it.
Now. We can hear you now.
Yeah. So good evening, Russell. It is now it's 8:30 here in Saudi Arabia. I am based in Jeddah. I head the e-commerce operation for grocery business, and I am here in Saudi Arabia for last 2 decades. So
Oh, wow.
It has been a long journey. Incidentally, this is my second roundtable with GetOS, and Abhilek is the one very familiar because in the last one we were together. So it's like homecoming.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I have been doing a lot of interviews, and I believe that we have to mentor and pass on our knowledge to the next generation. And that is where my average age of my team would always be in the range of 30. And that is something I love to mentor, guide, and build teams. And not only what you do in office, but beyond office, how can I help and add value to youngsters? That has been my goal all along, and I look forward to hear from the eminent panelist here, as well as share my own experience of how I deal with youngsters and what we need to do going forward with all the changes that is happening around the world. So
Yeah.
I believe the summit is at the right time with the right topic for us to
Absolutely.
share and learn from each other.
Absolutely, Alexander. Couldn't agree with you more. And thank you very much for joining us. And last but not least, myself, my name is Russell Bundy. I'm the co-founder and chief visionary officer at Just Verify, where we're building the AI, the trust layer for AI infrastructure. And also, I am the director of partnerships at GatherVerse as well, where I handle pretty much all the partnerships. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell. So let's get into these amazing questions. So the first question is, what does it mean to lead with heart in today's advancing world? We'll head over to Dorcas, and then we'll head over to we'll go to Alexander. So Dorcas, we'll start with you.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to start with a quote, and this comes from interacting with a lot of youth. One of the quotes I really like going with is, "We rise by purpose and not position. Leadership begins the moment you choose to care enough to act." And I like the question you've asked, because one of the things that I've come to learn, having interacted with the youth, and especially in a very close manner, because my background is in HR, when you're thinking about how can you how do you lead with a heart? Majority of the people think that you show up, especially for women leaders, you show up and you're going to always show empathy in all wrong ways. But for me, when you talk about leading from the heart, it means empathy, but being shown in the right manner and being very authentic. And most of the time, when you're being authentic, it means you have to connect to the person you're talking to. So from where I sit and where I come from, when I am mentoring, when I am even looking for the right talent for my clients, one of the questions I always keep asking myself is, will this person come to contribute to this team? And will it matter? What kind of impact are you coming to bring? Not only the skill, but you as a person, what are you coming to bring? One of the difficult things we see is we hire for tokenism. So you have to do a balance. If it's in Kenya, it's not really sometimes about gender. Sometimes it's about ethnicity from where you come from. And we always have this lingo, and my two Kenyans can agree. We have the lingo we call hire the African, or I would say the Kenyan face. So are you showing empathy when you're doing this? Are you leading that graceful way of knowing that you're choosing the right person? So my biggest ask, I always ask someone when I'm interacting with them is, how centered is your decision? Is it because you want to make a decision with your mind, either factual and with numbers, or are you going to consider that that factual decision you're about to make with the data you're using is going to affect a human being? And one of the learnings I learned was during COVID, where we had to make a decision based on numbers, but it also meant we have to look at the people we're interacting with. Right now, it's the inverse. It's not COVID, but now we're looking at AI. What decisions are we making, and how is it going to affect the people who are at work? Are we going to focus on simplicity in terms of clicking and just getting the solution from AI? Or are we going to ask ourselves that we're going to bring the human perspectives into the discussions to have a better contribution? Yeah.
No, I agree with that so much. And authenticity, absolutely. And also human values is fundamental when it comes to today's technology, and making sure that we lead with that. Which brings me to yourself, Alexander. Obviously, Saudi Arabia and the UAE and places like that. You You guys are more kind of like more about relationship and trust and having that, authentic relationship. So from your point of view, how does this question relate to the Middle East region in particular?
No, absolutely. I think what you have summarized in few words stands out for the Middle East and the Asian business, Asian economy or the Asian world and the Middle East world. The priority is always on the relationship, how you build. So it's so opportune that your first question is talking about leading from heart. So one of the earlier companies where I was working, the CEO used to always say that we are the upside down pyramid. So it's to show it like this, that I am at the bottom and you are on the top. So I am supposed to help and guide. So it is more of a service, servant leadership. Is to say it's more like a servant leadership. If you are at the bottom of the chain, it doesn't mean that you are not useful. I need to be relatable to you. So I can give an example from Bible that if you look at Jesus washing the feet of disciples, that itself was showing that it was not the status, but it was more of a service, and you exemplify, you show it to the world that even though you are a leader, you are not scared, feeling ashamed to reach out to people and go to the washing of the feet. That itself was a great example. So I told you about the CEO as well as what happened in the Bible. Now coming to Middle East, wherever we work, right up to from the CEO down to everyone, the first thing that we do is wherever you go, you meet someone, it's besides asking how are you and all, you always offer the local drink. Tea, coffee is mandatory, but if not, more than that is the kawa, that is usually we give in Saudi Arabia and Middle East, to show that how close we are to people and how much it values to talk from heart. The business can run, but if you don't have relation, if you don't have connections, that business doesn't succeed and it doesn't sustain for long.
Right. I completely agree with that. I mean, obviously cultural differences and everything like that. And, it's fantastic that the Middle East lead with relationship first, right? Because, for example, I can take here in the UK as an example. Here in the UK, it's all about, okay, let's say you want to raise money, for example. Let's say you're a student and you've just done a startup and you've just passed your exams, you passed your MBA, and you want to get investment for your startup, right? Well, here in the UK in particular, if you try and raise investment here, they're like, okay, what traction do you have? Do you have a product? Okay, do you even have an MVP? How much traction do you have on MVP? Does it even fit into the right market? It's a lot different here in the UK than what it is over in the Middle East. I've kind of noticed that fundamental difference, and it's great to see that, like when it comes to the culture within the Middle East, how you guys lead a relationship first, because that I think that's more fundamental than how much money can you make, right? Okay, we all want to make money, we get that, but it needs to have a starting point, and the foundation for where you guys are is the relationship first, which I think is fantastic that you guys do that. So, but anyway, moving on to the next question. So, which is, what are the biggest challenges young change makers face in leadership today? It's a very interesting question. So we'll bring Matt into this, and also we'll bring Khalid as well into this. So Matt, over to you.
I think that's a very, very interesting question. I think I think leadership is a journey. That's how I've always taken it. It's not something anyone walks in having all the answers. And as being a young change maker, being a young innovator, some of the biggest challenges we face is things like imposter syndrome. So guys are really struggling to feel like they can do whatever it is they want to do. And this is a challenge that really combats people today. And I think, what I realized over the years is sometimes you just need to do these things. Just need to do it. Like there's no perfect answer. There's no perfect way to accomplish anything. Just need to go out there and get things done. So, and that helps you battle the challenges with imposter syndrome, with self-doubt, with and all these other things. Because I came to realize, like, most of the bottlenecks or most of the hurdles are usually more of internal rather than external. Yes, some guys might complain about things like ageism, like what's it called? There's this thing, there's ageism, there's gatekeeping and all that. But you come to realize that most of the hurdles are actually internal. It's young people who fear going out there and putting themselves out there and trying to challenge themselves and do something new. So for me, I usually feel it's just go out there, do your best, and that's what counts at the end of the day. The fact that you've been able to go out there and accomplish something that most people maybe sat back at home and didn't do it. Yeah.
No, I completely agree. I think confidence is fundamental. If you don't have confidence, then how can you push yourself towards anything and do anything, right? So I think it's really awesome that you're bringing that up in particular, Matt. And another thing that was brought up also in one of the earlier roundtable discussions was also hope, right? Hope for the future, hopeful for a better life in terms, for themselves, but also in terms of humanity too, or whatever, drives you, so to speak, to move forward, right? Another thing as well could be great, which I think is also fundamental, like Alexander and Khalid, for example, are mentors, right? Being able to have the right guidance to guide you also would be another, fantastic way in which can also help youngsters pass the biggest challenges, or at least help mitigate the making less mistakes, right? So, Khalid, which brings me on to you for yourself. What are the biggest challenges young change makers face in leadership today from your point of view and from your lens? Oh, you need to unmute your microphone, Khalid.
I think the biggest challenge that the youth is facing, especially the change makers, is that they need to have the chance to do and implement what they want to do. Nowadays, when we started the internship program, we find out that most of the corporate, they don't give the youth who just graduated from university the chance to work for them, because their excuses is that you don't have experience. If you don't give them the chance to showcase their talent, how will you know that they are a great asset to your organization? It happened that in 2013, I was with the IVLB, a program by the State Department, with another 20 people from other places from the world. And we did visited 5 states in the United States. And that's what made us go back and create a program called the Social Entrepreneurship Program, where the youngster have to find challenges, an environment challenge, an economic challenge, a social challenge, a culture challenge, and how they can convert the solution for those challenges into a profit-making solution. That was giving them the chance to showcase their talent. That was giving them the chance to express how the young ones can find solutions for their countries, and how they can also grow their businesses from a startup to established business, and then help also the unemployed people.
That's fantastic.
Every single thing that we have faced, which was a challenge for the youth, the solution, the answer for it, was a proof to everyone that the youth are a talented leader, and they are the future of their countries, and they are the future of their neighborhood and their community. They just need a chance. So this is the biggest challenge that we find out. The youth don't have enough chances, and we should extend the hands to them and give them the chance and the needs that they want. If we do this collectively, we can see not only economy is changing, we can also see a beautiful change on the economy and in the technology. My good friend Matt is an IT person, as I heard. And young leaders, if they get the chance, he can confirm as well how they will be talented not only to have ChatGPT, but we will gonna have lots of other robotics, future solutions in medical, and how advanced the future can be yesterday, not tomorrow.
I like that. That was a mic drop moment right there, Khalid. But no, I completely agree with you 110%. And I think if you do allow the youth to have opportunities, absolutely, it's important to have that, because when I got into entrepreneurship and stuff like that, I never had any opportunities. I had to go out there, make my own opportunities, work my way up in companies, get the experience, etc. Then once I get the experience, then go and create my own thing. And I had to work from the ground up. And, I think it's fundamental that we do give the youth the opportunities to allow them to establish their future so that they can become and build their own businesses or become part of another company where they can be a fantastic asset for that. So I completely agree with you 110%. And thank you for sharing that, Khalid. And we'll, yeah, sure. Alexander, what's up?
Just wanted to know whether we can add to whatever our eminent panelist is saying. We can add to it, or we have to.
Well, what I do is I kind of do fire rounds. I do one question, two people, and then if you want to add something, by all means, put in the chat, and then we can always jump in. But please go ahead. If you had something to say, please go ahead.
Yeah, just one anecdote I'll tell you. One of the guy, he joined us as a helper, but however, I saw potential that he could be a good data analyst. And after a period of 3 months of training, he didn't know what Excel spreadsheet is about, what PowerPoint is all about. But then taking him through this hand-holding cycle, he is today one of the good data analysts we have got. He was as a helper, he was a laborer, but then the potential was seen, and he was given that opportunity. So to Khalid's point, absolutely, if we give them an opportunity and we build them by hand-holding, I can see a tremendous potential in a lot of youth. Even we started like that. Without anything, we started and we built over a period of time.
Especially in the age of AI, absolutely. I think it's fundamental that we do that. So this goes on to my next question now, which is, what is the responsibility of youth in creating a better future for themselves? I'm sorry, someone's got their microphone muted. Alexander, could you mute your microphone, please? Thank you very much. What is the responsibility of youth in creating a better future for themselves and the next generations? I want to bring Masni into that, and also Deshan also will head over to you after. And I just also got a comment. Oh no, don't worry. Masni, please join us and share your thoughts on this.
Yep. What I would like to say is actually for the younger generation to create. I think most of the time today, what we are looking at is sustainability. So I think if the youth come forward and then champion sustainability projects, even like inclusivity and ethical practices. So I think that will really bring them up to be more responsible, and then that can also educate the next generation. So for example, like starting social enterprise that would actually drive positive change for the society and future generations. So yeah, that's my thought around the responsibility of the youth to move forward.
No, I agree with you 110%. And I'll just kind of add my own bit onto that, which is, I would say when it comes to like AI and stuff like that, I think if they kind of learn the fundamentals of AI, right? And I understand that the youth is growing up with AI, but I think if you really get to understand it, I mean, it's kind of like we're at a stage now where we have no choice but to learn it, right? Like you haven't got a choice in the manner, you have to do it whether you like it or not. And I know that's horrible to say or hear, but it's kind of like the truth, right? And I think if the youth really sort of get into grips with AI and really understand it and really push themselves and really get to know it like inside out, then I think that will be able to advance them into whatever career which they want to do. Do you agree with that, Masni?
Yep, definitely. Yep. So it's I think if they actually step up and create and champion that movement, I think it's definitely going to be helpful to the next generation. So that means it's like handover. Like for us now at this age, we are already moving forward. So the next generation, like Matt, they should step up as well. Yeah.
Deshaun, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the youth's biggest responsibility is embracing and having a long-term perspective. Because when you have perspective, every choice you make, whether physical, mental, or even digital, it shapes your future and the world you're trying to build. So, for example, if you're in your 20s and you try and maybe you neglect your health, or even learning and say there is time later, then you're missing the bigger picture. So responsibility kicks in when you realize your actions today have a ripple forward. So you start small. You curate what you eat, consume what you consume, which means digitally and physically, and you prioritize your well-being and then act with intention. Because when you act with intention and you have that perspective, you focus on the future, not now, which means you build for the future and the purpose of the next generation.
Matt, Matt, I want to bring you on this quickly because obviously you have also your own company. Do you agree with all these sentiments here?
I
Matt, you
think
need
I
to
think
unmute.
young
Go ahead.
people play a crucial role. Oh, you can hear me? Yeah.
Yes,
I think
can,
young
yeah.
people play a crucial role. Like if you look at a continent like Africa, where over 70% of the population is purely young people. Actually, sometime last year, we had a number of demonstrations, primarily led all across the continent, led by young people. I think Gen Z has become a very popular word on the continent since then. You see, like people across the continent are really feeling that they need to take a step in controlling their future and shaping what their outlook looks like. Because you see, we have a lot of issues here in Africa in terms of like the opportunities you can get in terms of personal growth, in terms of career opportunities and all that. So young people are being intentional about taking a step towards shaping their own futures and doing all this, both politically, both in the technology fields, both in education, in science, and in all those industries. So I feel that what we should do as maybe leaders and pioneers in our different spaces is motivate these young people. I think Alexander mentioned about how somebody came into his company who didn't do anything with data analysis, and then after a while they realized he's the best person in his company for that role. So I think what young people really need is just that push, that motivation, that guidance, and they will take the step, they take the initiative themselves to take up the responsibility of creating a better future.
Ralph and Ablehak, I can't say your name, I'm sorry. We'll head over to you guys next. I can see you guys kind of going backwards and forwards in the chat. So I know there's a lot of what people have to say in terms of that subject, but obviously I want to make sure we get through all the questions because we are limited on time. And also you can add obviously your piece as well within this next question, which is, what small everyday actions can young people take to drive impact over time? So Ablehak, is that how you say your name? Sorry.
Yeah, that's correct. It's Abhilek.
Sorry?
It's Abhilek.
Abili.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this? And also please do add to the previous conversation as well.
Yeah, I mean, AI is literally changing lives. So as I've mentioned in the chat, like China has made it compulsory for class 1 and 12, students, like from starting 8 hours of teaching at least every calendar year, right? When it comes to making everyday impact in terms of what young people can do to, do things. So I think one of the key things is about doing more volunteer work, doing more volunteering locally. Either you can start volunteering for Toastmasters, TEDx. You can support peers, or you can practice sustainability with the UN SDG goals, right? Also, you can use social media right now. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, there was no so much craze on social media, right? So you can create a lot of awareness. There are different websites like change.org, so you can create a lot of awareness about important critical issues, right? And the most important thing which I believe every country should learn is about building good habits. I mean, I can take an example of when I was in Tokyo. I could see literally the young kids crossing the road, but making sure that they are carrying each other's hands. The teacher don't have to instruct. So it's been there in Japan. They get this early good habits. They know it. They have to help others first rather than thinking about themselves. Which I have learned it from Tokyo, right? So it's about kindness, showing kindness. These are these things, very limited things, but then this can really influence a lot of people, and this could actually create a ripple effect of positive change. So by doing all those kind of day-to-day such kind of examples, I'm sure the youth can not just motivate others, but also take up some leadership roles and also live a life with great purpose every single day.
No, I agree with that 100%. And, I think there's, honestly, there's so many things that you could add to that, right? In terms of small things that everyday actions young people can do, right? To drive the impact over time. So, like, for example, one thing could be time management, right? Just a simple thing like that, like being able to, use your calendar, time it wisely, figure out, okay, when I'm going to work out, or if they are at that age, of course, like 18 or over, when am I going to work out in the gym, or, where do I then get my groceries if I'm living on my own, stuff like that. But also, like, in terms of studying, right? Like, for example, are you going to do an hour research here? Are you going to be, teaching something potentially? Like, so definitely, like, these fundamentals and confidence and all these other things that we've spoken about so far, all of this adds up, and all these small things come together to create, allowing a better future for the youngsters. So Ralph, over to you. What small everyday actions can young people take to drive impact over time from your point of view?
All right, thank you. So I was just going to start from where you left off. So I think it starts from building a very strong habit and working on yourself first before you try to make impact on the future or on other people. So it starts, of course, with building such great habits over time, ensuring that your purpose is known, ensuring that you, as a young person, are committed to really strong values and staying close to your values. And once that's done, and you know that, well, this is great, you've built up something that's wonderful and that should be learned and used by others, you might want to start using platforms like the social media, which is decentralized information sharing now, to share what you believe, should be to the benefit of people. For example, you can use social media, for example, to share what good governance would look like. How people should demand for accountability from governance. How you think that certain status quo that has not contributed to the growth of society or community or group of people can be changed, and to what else. And of course, like I said, it starts with yourself, and that means that you must have, first of all, done your research, done your work, done your personal building on your own self before you can communicate this to other people to use, right? Change is built through habits and not just headlines, all right? And again, this is why it needs to start with you as a person. So I think that our young people, first of all, especially the young people of today, need to do a lot of work on themselves. And I can't emphasize that enough. And this is simply because you find out that most young people currently have this this attention deficit disorder and are unable to really pay attention to something for so long. But if you're going to build anything that will be sustainable, you're going to build strong systems. It requires a lot of time for analyzing, studying, feasibility studies, understanding what the status quo is, taking time to learn what is a better place to be at, and communicating that with your team, for example, or the people who will build that with you. This requires a lot of patience, which are things that this current day, young people don't have. So they will first of all need to take a lot of time to build, that habit into themselves. And once that has happened, they should be able to communicate that to a team, to a community of people using social media and whatever that is to pass this information, forward. And hopefully this all happens and they have strong footing, then they can take that forward to mentoring peers, okay, on such an everyday thing. I currently mentor a lot of young people, all right, and their lives get better as a result, right? So you want to commit to mentoring other people, other young people like yourselves, calling them up, because you will be amazed at the amount of young people who don't have values, who are just chasing shiny things, who are just all over YouTube trying to create content over to make money, or to go on TikTok and stuff. And that's just all. Why are you doing this? What does it? Is this? It is an end to them instead of being a means to an end. There's nothing else that most of today's young people are chasing, other than just to make money and what is the next shiny thing to chase after. That has to change. And once we find that change, it has to grow and it has to be consistent. This would be my 2 cents advice to young people.
I mean, thank you for sharing your perspective, first of all. And it's interesting because in the age of AI now, it's kind of like, is that even possible, right? And I can see, by the way, a bunch of comments from the panelists here, all commenting in the side chat here. For example, Masni saying, like taking small, consistent steps, especially in line with their values, will be impactful as one grows and matures. I think I completely agree with that, Masni. And there's such a big topic that we could, be here all day discussing about. But fundamentally, what you said, Ralph, is true. What you said, Masni, is true. And I think what everyone has said in this panel so far is very true, which is which kind of leads me to the next question, which is, how can young leaders inspire others to take responsibility for the future, right? And Khalid, I can see you smiling on this one. So let's bring you on this particular question. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think first, we need to have a safe environment for the youth to grow, for them to build a better future. And to do so, the education have to be updated with the trend of the economy. What is the future economy and what do they need? If we are going to have the same education system that we had it in our day implemented today, we will not have a bright future for the young generation. So education have to be updated. And if we want the outcome of the youth education to be bright and right, we have to have also a safe environment in their education zone, like in their school, in their university. We started a program back in 2008, and we are implementing it till today, a youth empowerment program, focusing in letting the youth overcome their challenges with bullying and their fear of standing in front of people and speaking, how they can accept others, how they can manage their time, and how they can build the small steps with their leadership style. If we don't give them the chance and how they can over those challenges today, how are they going to build a better future tomorrow? Because if those small things is not implemented and you have improved the education, they are not ready for it. You have to empower the youth first, improve the education, make it updated with what is the world is in need for, and that's how you can see a bright future.
Absolutely.
So steps like this is only the steps that can be implemented in the part of education. When it comes to their future work, especially in Corona, some of the universities for their graduation, for the students' graduation, they had to do an internship program in industrial areas. But they cannot because, everyone was staying at home. That's why we also have implemented for the young leaders an online internship program where thousands of people was graduated during the period of Corona online. And we have given them the right experience, which was matching even better than having a physical attendance in an office. Solutions is there. Solutions is there. But what we need to do is to have a collective efforts from the private sector to help the youth to become who they want to be and let them overcome the challenges when it comes to their education, to their innovation, and to their future planning.
Dorcas, I can see you smiling and agreeing and mumbling in the background there. Please jump in on this. So what are your thoughts?
So one of the things, and it's a common disease we see, we seek to hire all the time the right talent, but there isn't a proper linkage that has been put in place where you have a proper program that actually sees somebody graduating, either getting into a proper planned internship, not internship in the sense that I'm doing it for the school submission, but internship in the sense that this person is going to be integrated to work so smoothly that you're going to get it right in your succession plan. Now, remember, we only focus, and this is unfortunate for the older generation, we only focus on us being the better version of the right skills that is required in the current marketplace. However, we need to ask ourselves, in the age of AI right now, what kind of skill do we require? And then what kind of programs do we have to put in place to have this person come and take over and either be the next CEO? We're looking at people like Elon Musk. We're looking like everyone who has created these AI systems. But the question we're asking ourselves is the institute preparing that young individual for the current market there? Because in my place as a coach, I find myself going back and asking this person, what is your purpose? What is your end goal? And one of the interesting things everyone wants to be right now as a young person is they want to lead, they want to create something. But beyond creation, they also need to know how will they collaborate, how will they partner and integrate with other people, because that is how you end up doing great things when you come together. And some of these things you don't get to learn as an individual. You actually get to learn in certain environments at work that enable you to see that I can be a great contributor, but I am not the main worker. So who's going to be the main worker at these current times we are in? The younger generation. They'll come simplify how work should be done and even improve what we call working smart. But the most unfortunate thing is we have theoretical solutions which are yet to be implemented. And if we get it right in that implementation, I feel the future will be bright when we're thinking about succession management of the right skill that would take over. Yes.
That's so interesting, and thank you for sharing that as well. And I think we've been having a great fire round here, back to back of great thoughts. So thank you both of you, Khalid and Dorcas, for that. And I truly believe both of what you're saying, and also when it comes to the age of AI, like how you're saying, how do the youth thrive in that, right? Or how do they become leaders within the AI age? And that's really hard to do because AI is always changing every day, as we all know. And it's like one day one thing's great, and then the next minute, like that's gone out the window, and now something new's come in. So it's really hard to also try and keep up when it comes to the education point of view, because obviously we want to make sure that we keep the education updated as much as possible and keep giving the youth the chances. So yeah, it's very difficult, but I'm sure there'll be ways that we can figure this out. And as humanity has always been, we've always survived and thrived through many times over the hundreds of years. So my next question, though, which is, what internal barriers prevent young people from taking on leadership roles, and how can they overcome them? One of the things we spoke about previously was confidence. So Alexander, what are your thoughts on this?
So Russell, thanks a lot. I was in fact expecting to answer this question. So it's like, yeah. So, it's a very interesting thing. It's the one you talk about the internal barriers, and then second one is how do you overcome that? So it's very interesting. I'll give an example. There are two things happen. One is the fear is there, whether I'll be able to achieve this or not. So I'll give example. My daughter, for anything she is doing, we tell, okay, 95% if you achieve something is great. But then her feeling is that no, I must achieve 100% perfection. So you are trying to go for perfection, and it also brings a sense of fear, that I'll fail, I'll probably not be able to achieve these things. So that becomes the first barrier for them, fear of failure, and the thought process that I have to be perfect in everything. The third part that generally comes up when you're sitting in a meeting or when you are in a social groups, the age bias comes. Somebody is young but has a very good opinion and wants to do something. So you have age bias. Oh, he's youngster, he doesn't have an experience, what is going to do? However, that is where you are in a corporate and all, but there are youngsters who go out of their way and they question the entire logic. And you probably have so many names. You'll probably talk about Greta, you'll talk about Malala. So these are a couple of youngsters who have broken those internal barriers to come forward to it. Now, there would be many such things. You are not confident of ourselves. Some of our eminent panelists have spoken about it. But this fear, this feeling that I will not be able to achieve, or what kind of support the community is not supporting. So those kind of things come up. Now, how do you get across on this? Probably build a kind of network, build a support system. These I usually tell the youngsters within the group that in case you want to create an opinion, maybe first time you find a failure, don't worry about it. Try and build an smaller islands of network which will start helping you out and backing you up. By that you start building yourself, and each one of them has a unique perspective. But how do you get that unique perspective? Is by uh, projecting yourself, by talking about it. In our times, you did not have this opportunity, but today you don't need to wait for anyone. There is Insta available, there is LinkedIn available, there are different
Yeah.
social media groups available where you can start voicing yourself. In our times, even one article if you write, you'll probably go through several failures before it comes into the newspaper. But today you don't need to worry about editing or anything. You can just go ahead and talk about yourself.
Exactly.
The last part which comes up for the internal barrier, on LinkedIn or on Facebook, you'll find a lot of youngsters. They say, oh, I'm getting six figure salary, I'm doing so good and all. So they internally, you feel that, okay, I am no one, I don't have any idea. There are so many people who are projecting themselves good. So even if they are not good, but because they are projecting wrongly, you try to put yourself into that shoe. Rather than being into somebody's shoe, be unique, be individual, and something that you are unique to yourself, and that is where you will be bringing value. And that is how you break the internal barriers and come up as a good leader.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Alexander. And I will add to that as well. I think one of the main things as well is trust. Being able to trust your mentors, trusting different people, trusting your friends, family, etc. It's great to have the support. It's great to have mentors. It's great to have exceptional leaders. But unless you can fundamentally trust them, like how you can trust, I mean, we can't even trust AI. But I mean, people do trust AI. Some people don't. Some people have very, very controversial opinions on AI. But trust is fundamental to all this. And by the way, we've literally got 2 minutes left. So Mazni, we'll bring you in 30 seconds onto this, and then we're going to have to round things up. So Mazni, please share your last thoughts, and then we'll have to finish things up.
Yeah. So what I wanted to add on is that something that we overlooked. We thought that the older generations, like for all of us, we know what is imposter syndrome. So when I was doing mentorship for young youth between the age of 18 to 24, they tend to have self-doubt. They have often they have imposter syndrome, and especially for young people, they will hold back. So one of the ways I feel to overcome these barriers, they can actually take small steps to celebrate small achievements, because they thought that only by big achievements I will be recognized. But then in order to build the confidence, right? They should be able to adopt more small responsibilities at the start. And then when they start building the confidence, the leadership skills will actually come up and show up. So embrace a growth mindset and view challenges as learning opportunities. That's my closing statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Matt, quickly, and then we'll have to round things out.
I was actually going to type it out, but thanks, Russell. So there's a quote by Sean Puri: "The cynics get to be right, the optimists get to be rich." Yeah, most of these internal barriers are barriers we create for ourselves. Yeah, so by being a cynic, you get to be right, but that's 99% right, 100% wrong. Because what matters is that 1%, that edge that you get by trying things out and putting yourself out there and pushing yourself. Yeah, so that's it for me.
Well, that's it. And on that note, thank you so much, Matt. Thank you to everybody. And make sure you check out everyone on this fantastic panel. It's been a fantastic discussion. And you guys, all of you had so much to say. It was so, I've never had a panel like this where everyone's like, I want to jump in. I want to jump in. I want to jump in. So it's fantastic to see. And it's been an amazing session. So thank you, everyone. And like I said, make sure you follow them all on LinkedIn. Go and check them out. Khalid, Alexander, Matt, Mazni, everyone here. And on that note, we're going to finish things up. So Gaba was well. And Christopher, over to you. Bye.
Bye.
I have a hope that each of you with us today, wherever you're at from around the world, that you'll find yourself a leader, a servant, a mentor to a young person in this world, just one. I have a hope that in our times of business dealings, in our times of innovation, in our times of selling, in our time of buying, in our time of guiding and consulting, I have a hope that you'll just take one person in this world and guide her or him toward a better path. I have a hope that you would remember that it wasn't too long ago that somebody took time in this world to guide you. That somebody in the forest, on the path, on the trek, simply pointed you into the right direction. I now know why we came together and why we've arrived to this point for our 31st Global Summit of GatherVerse. I now know why. As I was just sitting there looking here in studio, working with the different team that we have around the world, enjoying my bowl of oats, I heard people speak from the heart. I saw the desire for professionals to want to not only make things great for themselves, but take an inch of the time that they have, knowing how time is fleeting, to dedicate these moments as a time capsule, time stamped in life for the betterment and the preservation of our youth. I have a hope. I have a hope that I'm not alone here at GatherVerse. I have a hope that you would see the value of what it is for us to be able to assemble together and to extend human preservation of expression now that we're having more interaction with machines than ever before. I have a hope. I feel as if we have just begun. I feel like GatherVerse is more timely now more than ever, and I have a hope that you would tell somebody that we exist. That there's a place for strangers to arrive at midnight and daylight, afternoon and morning, dusk at dawn, to be able to arrive together, to be able to have expressions shared from their lens and cultural perspectives, cross-cultural communication at the intersection of emerging technologies and humanity. I have a hope that you have found benefit within this GatherVerse community. That you would care for one another. That you will just do just that much more to help alleviate the hardships of another. And in this instance, our youth. We've innovated a thing we know not, and they will undoubtedly inherit what it is that we contribute. Whether we are conscious of this or not, they will. Somebody took the time to guide us and to do right by us, by goodness, and by all that's right. As I've been taught, might we give back freely that which was freely given unto us? I have a hope. And this week we have more GatherVerse Day 2 and Day 3 Summit. And next week we have Day 4 and Day 5. I've had so many mentors that have helped guide me along the way. I've been under the banner, under the tutelage, as far as technology goes, under some of the most brilliant minds I've ever known in technology. And some of the greatest things I've ever learned from them is not technology. Is that each of them had the compassion and the time to be able to teach a kid like me from Oakland, California, from the poorer cities and the ghettos, to show me how to go about it the right way. They didn't have to do it, and they never asked for a dime. And they gave more than I could possibly repay, both women and men. There's never been more of an important time to be able to let our youth know the pathway forward. Because when you and I entered this forest, on this path, so deep, had we had appreciation that somebody came before us and laid down the foundation for us to walk on in the first place, and we become so far and so further into this forest, so deep and off the path that we've begun to have to be able to create pavement for those that come behind us, that we're so deep in the trenches beyond the branches and the brambles. And the only thing I ask of you in this hope, in this moment, is don't forget to leave the light on. Because whether we realize it or not, somebody did the same for us, and we may never know who they are. Now, if you think that this is all about business, you got another thing coming to you. GatherVerse has gone from being a business-centric platform to a humanity-centric platform, and finding the next steps in the next way that's encapsulated in ethics and trust, safety and privacy, accessibility, care, compassion. And maybe in the midst of all that, we'll find a little bit of joy, and we'll do it together. I'm so thankful that we were afforded the opportunity to turn the lights on, to turn and power this studio on. We're thankful for our sponsors. We're always open to sponsorship. We're a free organization, and we approach that with humility and humbleness. Whatever we got to do to keep the lights on, we're willing to do it. And we approach this with servants' hearts. It's not about influencers for us. This is about you and how we can serve to make what you do in life a better example unto others. We thank you. We hope that you'll join us at GatherVerse Youth Summit Day 2 tomorrow. We have a lot. We have a lot to carry. And all of you that are with us at GatherVerse.live, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and more, thank you for staying with us all the journey's way. My name is Christopher Lafayette, the founder of GatherVerse, an emergent technologist, humanitarian, co-founder of Just Verify, founder of Lafayette Global Launchpad. But at the end of the day, I'm just a son and a servant. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to be able to serve each of you. For GatherVerse Summit, Youth Summit, Day 1, our gathering as well. And on tomorrow, when we meet at GatherVerse Youth Summit Day 2, may our gather be well.
He's on a drug. Oh, mothers, tell your children not to do what I have done. Spend your lives in sin and misery in the house of the rising sun. Well, there is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun, and It's been the ruin of many a poor boy. And God, I know